All right, team, welcome to Her Take. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, click the bell notification so you never miss a show. Today's guest is Adam Sosnick from the PBD podcast. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. I feel like I'm at a club in South Beach and I'm at a promoter table and I have all the chicks with me, so this feels very at home to me.
All right, well then we're gonna do fine. I just want to remind
Jillian.
I want to remind everybody. I've been warned by Vinny that I need to be excellent at moderating today. He's afraid to even join me up here. I tried to recruit him. We are all friends at this table. We are going to disagree today, obviously, very clearly. You know, at the end of the day, we are good people. We want the same things. We're not going to get any punches in below the belt.
No.
I'm setting it up there. All right. So with
I came bearing gifts, though.
Did you? What do you got?
Yes.
Oh.
Everyone gets an American flag.
Oh, thank you.
Everyone gets an American flag because let's not forget what country we love and what we represent.
Thank you, Adam.
I like it.
Of course.
All right, guys. While I put
it on, ladies.
I'm in the process.
Okay, sorry.
All right. There's a lot happening today, guys. I'm sure you've heard, but we are not going to repeat headlines. Our goal here is to ask the bigger questions of why. Why is all this going on? And hopefully provide you with some answers so you can make the best decisions for yourself and your family. As always, do your own research, because right now we're living in a world where information moves faster than the truth can catch up. We all have blind spots. We all have biases. So please fact check us, challenge us, and most of all, think for yourself. So here's what's on deck. I'm bearing the lead, obviously, but the No Kings protests, who's really behind them? Who's funding them? What's the end game? Immigration. Newsom and Bass, they warn that deporting illegals are going to crush the California economy. But when you break down what are the real costs of illegal immigration, the benefits of legal entry, and the reforms that we should actually be demanding from our leaders that might actually benefit both migrants and citizens, they're not talking about them. Speaking of, why does the left suddenly act like deportations are a crime against humanity when our heroes on the left, like Obama and Clinton, deported? This is like just my fifth coffee and my second piece of nicotine gum. This is sad state of affairs.
Wow.
I apologize in advance. Deported millions more than Trump. And then we're going to discuss David Hogg's exit, Alex Padilla in handcuffs, Newsom's curated dissent, what's really steering the Democrats, what is their strategy? And of course, first we're going to unpack what triggered Operation Rising Lion. Was it self-defense? Was it something more calculated? What are the stakes for America? Is this the start of peace in the Middle East, or is it the opening act of another $1 trillion war that has a heavy cost to America, including lives? So, Anna, I'm going to let you start us out here. Go ahead.
Sure.
Put on my flag.
All right. Well, on Thursday of this week, Israel carried out strikes in Iran, essentially beginning what is now referred to as a war. The strikes were carried out right before Donald Trump, the president of the United States, of course, was supposed to have another round, I believe the 6th round of diplomatic negotiations with Iran to get a nuclear deal, a new nuclear deal, because in 2018, Trump ripped up the original nuclear deal, which prevented Iran from enriching enough uranium to build nuclear weapons. That brings us to today, where you have the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, for literally decades, trying to push the United States to go to war in Iran on Israel's behalf. He decides to carry out this strike. There's now evidence indicating that Trump did give him his blessing to do this. And so what's the argument? Well, of course, Israel is making the self-defense argument. And I'll give you a little taste of what Netanyahu had to say when he was on Fox News being interviewed by Bret Baier just yesterday. Take a look. No, first video that I sent you. 1 second.
Anna just wanted more screen time, so just excuse me 1 second. There it was right there. Natalia's doing a good job pulling this up. But Bret Baier landed that interview. Congratulations. Bret Baier is a G.
Did you see him rapping on stage? Bret Baier's amazing.
Bret Baier can rap?
Oh my God, yeah, he's great.
Okay. He's probably the best person they have on Fox. Shout out to you, Bret Baier.
I just liked it in the text exchange, so you'll know which video I'm talking about. And I'm going to go in that order, so you guys know how I'm going to present this.
While she's pulling it up, give a quick summary of what the central thesis is that you want to talk about.
Okay, so, all right, let's just forget the videos, I guess. So basically,
pull it up.
Yeah. So Netanyahu argues, we have intelligence indicating that Iran is on the precipice of developing nuclear weapons, and that poses a threat to Israel. At the same time, though, we have Tulsi Gabbard. Can we pull up that video, Tulsi Gabbard? In March, Tulsi Gabbard gave a briefing. She is the Secretary of the Department of National Intelligence. And so she's talking about the threat that Iran poses. She's specifically addressing them allegedly building nuclear weapons. Now, this is in March of this year. Take a look.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons.
So without nuclear weapons, they're not building a nuclear bomb. That's what she clearly states during this hearing back in March. Then you have Netanyahu making it appear as though, oh my God, they're about to drop the nuke on Israel. There's no evidence of that. There's no indication that they're building a nuclear weapon. And more importantly, Nat, now you can go to the last video I sent you, because this is a video from 2002. And I should also note, dating all the way back to the 1990s, Netanyahu was saying that Iran is about to obtain a nuclear weapon. This has been a narrative by Netanyahu for literally decades. And here's what he had to say back in 2002. Obviously, this was after 9/11, but before the United States did the preemptive war in Iraq. Israel was trying to goad the U.S. to invade Iraq, even though Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Nonetheless, here's what Netanyahu said.
And this is a tyrant who is feverishly trying to acquire nuclear weapons. And today the United States must destroy the same regime, because a nuclear-armed Saddam will place the security of our entire world at risk. It is simply not reflecting the reality to assume that Saddam isn't feverishly working to develop nuclear weapons. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. Principles of real estate, the 3 L's, location, location, location. The 3 principles of winning the war on terror are the 3 W's, winning, winning, and winning. The more victories you amass, the easier the next victory becomes. The first victory in Afghanistan makes a second victory in Iraq that much easier. The second victory in Iraq will make the third victory that much easier. Less than dismantling his regime will do.
Okay, so whether you're talking about Iran, whether you're talking about Iraq, whether you're talking about Libya, whether you're talking about Afghanistan, there has been this orchestrated effort, specifically by Netanyahu. He's been kind of like the mouthpiece for it. But the government of Israel has been trying to get the United States to fight its wars for Israel to the detriment of Americans. We went into Iraq. 4,000 of our soldiers died based on a complete lie. There were no weapons of mass destruction. There was no indication that they were developing nuclear weapons. It was a lie. And I believe that right now what's happening is Israel does the strike. Okay, I think Trump made a huge mistake by giving that strike, or giving these current strikes that Israel is doing, his blessing. I think he was under the assumption that that would bring Iran to the negotiating table and give the United States more leverage. But that is not what's going to happen. Now Iran is in full-blown war with Israel, to the point where Israel is trying to get the United States to fight offensively, not to just defend Israel, but to fight offensively. So I give you that because people are going to die. People are already dying. On the Iranian side, as we speak right now, upward of 220 Iranians dead. On the Israeli side, it's now in the dozens of innocent people dead. And I think this is really part of what's known as the Greater Israel Project, right? They want to have dominance in that region, and they want to install puppet governments. And so in the case of Iran, Netanyahu can barely contain himself when it comes to wanting regime change. But it is always a bad idea when you have a third party or a foreign government carry out or orchestrate regime change in your own country. We have seen how that works out. It destabilizes countries. Look at Libya. That's a perfect example. Libya gave up their nuclear program, and you know what they got in return? American boots on the ground to do regime change war. So my issue here is that we're being lied to, and we're being lied to the detriment of Americans and to, I guess, to the benefit of Israel, and I don't think that's okay.
Adam, do you want to? I actually have some thoughts, but I know you're far more well-versed than me.
Well, I mean, I'm an American first, so respectfully, what's your point?
My point is the United States should not be backing Israel in this war of aggression against Iran.
So
Iran is not a threat to our national security. There's no evidence of that whatsoever.
I don't think that's true, Anna.
Based on what?
Okay, based on the fact that she just said they have a huge amount of enriched uranium.
They do.
They have 6 to 10 bombs worth. So let's start with that.
You want to know who has nuclear weapons? Israel.
I know, but Israel is
Allegedly.
not. Hold on.
No, not allegedly.
Hold on.
Not allegedly.
Hold on. There's a difference. Israel is not chanting death to America. They are not ideologically captured. On top of that, they just got detonators, which makes them more dangerous. What is the proof that they're doing this? They have nuclear sites that both.
Jill, this is the same Iraq narrative. How are we
think-
falling for it again?
I agree
again.
with you that I don't want Iraq ever again, but I see.
But we're
vast
driving toward that. We're totally driving
just
toward that.
because you're right on something doesn't mean you're right on everything.
I'm right on everything
Can
when
I
it
also
comes
say
to this.
one
So
more
that's
thing?
where you made a problem.
Yeah.
Is that you just
Okay, tell me where I'm
convinced
wrong.
yourself
Tell me where I'm wrong.
that you're right on
Nuclear
everything.
weapons, though.
Tell me where I'm
I just
wrong.
want to finish this
I
one.
want to. Okay,
Are
can I
you
just
going to go
ask one
fight?
question?
Are you going to enlist and go fight on behalf of Israel?
I have family. I have friends that are in the IDF.
Okay,
How many
they're
family
in the
and friends
IDF.
do you have
They're
in
in
Hamas?
Israel. If you're
If we're
American,
gonna have a discussion,
you should not be
don't
calling
talk
for
when I'm
American
talking.
soldiers
That's what
to
I'm
fight
saying.
Israel's war.
You
I'm
just
sorry.
ranted,
Okay, hold
and
on.
I'm going to talk
Hold on.
now.
All right.
I'm going to ask you one question.
Okay, Adam, go.
But if we're going to talk, and then let me talk, then
Let me
you
just
talk.
say one thing, real quick. One
So
sentence.
I don't get to talk. You kept
Well,
going.
you do.
Hold on,
Hannah, welcome to your show. Go ahead, sweetheart.
The country that is currently carrying out a genocide in Gaza has nuclear weapons, and they have the audacity to talk about how other countries in the region are a threat to their national security. Okay, go ahead.
Well, let
good
me just say
point.
one
Yeah, go
thing.
ahead.
Here's the thing. I appreciate that Netanyahu is a
Terrible
deeply
person.
flawed person.
Yep.
Okay. And I appreciate that nobody wants to see Iraq again. But on top of the fact that I do think there is some legitimate concern at this moment with regard to nuclear weapons, there's also intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Every country has that. Are we going to invade every country because they have missiles?
Death to America. They're the top funders of terror. The Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Shia militias. They have assassination plots against our president. There's cyber
There's no
attacks.
evidence of that either, by the way.
Where does
that-
CIA said that?
The CIA loves to goad the United States into
I
war.
want to understand your central thesis. Here's my
go ahead.
question.
What is
Are
your
you
central
saying
thesis?
that Iran is not
A threat to America. Iran is not a threat to America. There's no evidence that Iran is a threat to America.
developing nuclear weapons?
They are part of...
Are they developing nuclear weapons or not?
They are not developing nuclear weapons. There is no evidence of that. Yes.
So why are they having nuclear
Anna,
peace talks?
why do they have
Because they
detonators
think
and enriched
because they think it's fun. What are you talking
Because
about?
okay.
If we can't live in reality, they're having nuclear peace talks.
Let me answer your
to
question.
do what? To
Okay.
talk about the nuclear weapons that they're not developing?
Okay.
That makes no sense to me.
First of all, I would not be surprised if they geared up enriching uranium as a result of the fact that Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018.
The Iran
Listen to
nuclear
me.
deal.
Hold on.
Let me
so they're
make that-
developing
Hold on,
nuclear
Adam,
weapons.
Hold on.
It's
Go.
okay.
Hold on.
Iran is part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Do you know what that is?
Go ahead, explain.
Non-Proliferation Treaty allows the international community to do checks on Iran to ensure that they are not developing nuclear weapons. The country that does have nuclear weapons is Israel. They are not part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They don't even acknowledge the fact that they have nuclear weapons. The idea that Israel, that has the backing of the top military superpower in this world, and that's the United States, the country that has nuclear weapons, is crying about how Iran is such a threat to Israel, it's ridiculous
But
to
didn't
me.
they just pull? I am not educated enough to fully go in, but what I did see everyone post this morning is that Iran is pulling out of that treaty.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
seen
yeah,
it?
I did see that.
They
So
broke
what are
the treaty as well.
So
They
what
were
are the
dishonest, which is
implications?
why-
What does the treaty ensure in breaking
You're
it? What are
next.
the implications of that?
The treaty ensures that they're not developing nuclear weapons. Here's the problem. Iran played by the rules, and they got
didn't,
fucked
Anna.
anyway.
They
and they got
lied.
fucked anyway.
Why do you think Trump...
So let me understand
hold
one
on.
thing.
Let me
Are
ask
you
you
a
something.
defender of Iran? Is that who
No,
you are?
I'm not a defender of
the
Iran.
mental
I'm a
gymnastics you
defender
have
of
to
the
go
United
through
States
to
of
defend
America and
Iran.
our soldiers.
Sounds like you're defending
and our
Iran
soldiers.
now.
You know what? I think Israel needs to fight its own wars. Why do they keep pulling the United States into their wars?
America is not
it's
on the
unacceptable.
ground in Israel. I'm America first. There's zero
You're not America
Americans.
first. Don't say that.
You don't.
When you're egging
I'm
on this
America
war,
first.
you're not America first. We
I'm
have
not-
soldiers in that region right now, tens of thousands of
they're
them,
not
who are now
fighting.
a target as a result of
So
this.
are you just like, do you hate Israel blindly that you can't address the facts? Or
I
like, what is
hate
it?
what the current Israeli government, not just the current Israeli government, what the Israeli government over the last several decades has done in lying to Americans and the American government in order to get us to fight their wars for them. That's what I have a problem with.
All the wars, and I agree we shouldn't have done what we did in Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that.
Yeah,
You're blaming
in 10 years,
all
you'll say the
that.
same about Iran.
Our
Trust
entire
me.
presidential, congressional, and military apparatus, all of that is based on Bibi Netanyahu's opinion?
Not
Is that
just
what
his
you're
opinion.
saying?
The Israeli government
So you're saying that
wants to be the dominant force in that region. Can we pull up the Western Clark
newsflash,
video,
they
Matt?
are. They've just taken out all their enemies. So I don't understand, are you defending terrorists?
I want Lindy's been trying to jump in.
defending terrorism? I don't get it.
this
Let me let
Go ahead,
Lindy
go ahead.
jump
No,
in.
I'm not defending terrorists.
I don't know what
no
you're
other
doing.
country expects the United States to fight their wars for them other than Israel. Why is that?
Well, Ukraine's doing a pretty good fucking job. How about that?
Okay,
I was
well,
gonna say.
So you're dead wrong on that.
in the case
and
of
there's
Ukraine,
also other countries that we get involved in.
Yeah,
and I
we
don't see
shouldn't.
American
And we
troops on the
shouldn't.
ground
And we
in
shouldn't.
Israel, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, in any of these.
Okay.
So what you're doing is yapping and lying. Here's my problem with you. You can be loud.
Yeah.
And you can be wrong.
You don't have
Pick
any-
one.
you don't have
when
any
you're loud
actual
and wrong,
substantive
that's when you
points.
get in trouble, okay?
Okay.
When
just
we
because-
invaded
Go ahead,
Iraq,
Lindy.
I've been trying to speak this entire. It's like 20 minutes in. I haven't said a single word.
go ahead, Lindy,
please.
go crazy, go nuts.
Go
I
ahead.
don't want to be like.
Just go.
Well,
Lindy,
anyway,
just
so
Like her?
Yeah.
go.
I just want to say, just because you're yelling doesn't mean that you're correct, but that's not my
Correct.
main point. My main point is this. I'm not even pro the Netanyahu regime, but let's get our facts correct. Iran is completely desecrating all agreements that it's previously made. In fact,
it's not.
yes.
Anna,
Can I
they
finish?
are.
They're not.
Just 2 weeks ago, they refused to let nuclear inspectors into their infrastructure, into their facilities. That is a clear violation of previous agreements. To say that that's not happening is completely dishonest and disingenuous. And I'm not even pro Netanyahu. I just want to lay out the facts here. This is what's happening. They are violating agreements.
Well, let me ask you something. If you play by the rules for years, you literally play by the rules, you're part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, you're allowing IAEA inspectors to come into your country, and you still see that Israel is successful in goading the United States to fight this war, they're still lying about what Iran is up to. Wouldn't you just say, you know what, F it. Why am I even part of this? Why are we allowing the international community to come in and check
So you're saying
what's
Iran
happening?
is playing by the rules?
Yeah, Iran
Is that what you're
was
saying?
absolutely
That's the
playing
premise.
by
Well,
the
then,
rules.
then now I know who you are. You believe Iran. Respect.
I don't believe Iran.
So
I
just
believe
how- just how people
international
are-
inspectors,
Okay.
and I believe the United States as they, by the way, if you don't want Iran to develop nuclear weapons, best way to do that is to remain in the Iran nuclear deal. But Netanyahu hated the
Trump
Iran nuclear
pulled
deal.
out of the Iran
He
nuclear
did.
deal.
Trump pulled out of it, but why?
So what are we relitigating?
No, they did. That's
Anna,
not
you
true,
just moved
Jillian.
the
That's
goalposts.
not
You
true.
just moved the goalposts.
I don't-
First you said,
I literally
wait,
don't
hold on.
understand your
Guys,
argument.
Let's
I don't
lay
understand
this out
anything you're saying.
clearly here. Anna first said Iran is playing by all the rules. That's what you said
Yes,
about
they were
5 minutes
playing by
ago.
all the rules,
I
yes.
just told you that they refused to let nuclear inspectors into their facilities just 2 weeks ago. So
Okay.
now you move the goalpost and you're saying, oh, but it's not their fault because they didn't play. They played by the rules. Now they can't not play by the rules because Israel isn't. Do you understand what I mean?
No.
Like you're changing.
Okay, let me calmly try to explain it so you guys understand what I'm saying. For years, Iran played by the rules because they don't want war. Okay? They allowed the international community to come in. They did abide by the Iran nuclear deal, even after Trump pulled out. For a few years after that, they were not enriching uranium because they wanted to re-enter the deal. By the way, Biden comes into power. Biden promised on the campaign trail that he was going to re-enter the Iran nuclear deal. He didn't do that. So Democrats are a problem in this scenario as well. Hold on, let me finish my
go
point.
ahead.
Let me finish my point.
So you see how I allow you to talk?
So
Go
I
ahead.
need to ask you something, Adam.
Go ahead.
Do you think Tulsi Gabbard was lying to the American people when she said that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon? Was she lying?
I don't know what information she's looking at, but I'm pretty sure Iran is working on a nuclear weapon. Question for you.
Sure, based on what?
Question for you.
Based on what?
Here's the
How
question.
are you sure?
She said
Here's
they
the
have
question.
enough enriched uranium.
She says
to
that
be
they
a
have
significant
accelerated.
threat. And if they're
Like-
not working on nuclear weapons, why do they have detonators?
Okay, so what do you
why
think is
do they
gonna
have
happen?
scientists there?
How
Why
do you
they
feel
have
about the Islamic
centrifuges?
regime of Iran?
How do
The
you feel
Ayatollahs?
about a
have
country
that.
that's doing a genocide right now having a nuclear weapon? Do you have any problems with that?
But let's say
Can
on
you
track
address
here.
the nuclear weapons that Israel
we're
has, or are you
talking
going to
about
deny
Iran.
that they
We're
have
talking about Iran. right?
Okay. Well, we're talking about Israel and Iran.
Okay.
Israel
let's
is
stay on Iran
a military
right now.
superpower because of the United States. They have nuclear weapons. They're carrying out the mass slaughter of innocent people in Gaza and the West Bank, which had nothing to do with October 7th. It's not. It's all related. We're pretending as if Israel is the devil here, and they're not.
I've learned my lesson. Don't try to convince someone who's completely off left field.
Someone who's actually educated on the matter, yeah.
So here's my question for you. How do you feel about the Islamic regime in Iran? Are they good people?
No, they're terrible people.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
So are the Saudis. So are a bunch of other countries we do trade with.
That we have relations violations of the Proliferation Agreement right here.
As bad as the Ayatollah. Why are people in Iran cheering for Israel? Why is...
That's not true.
Yeah, no,
there's videos left and right.
80% of Armenians actually detest
Iranians
the regime.
are rooting for Israel. If there's one country that Israel has the highest approval ratings, it's within Iran. Why is Reza Pahlavi getting on TV, doing an interview, pull it up, saying, please, Iranians, now's the time to revolt against the regime?
That's installed by Israel.
So I don't understand what you're doing, respectfully.
Yeah.
You're defending Iran?
I'm defending the United States.
What a horrible position to be in.
Yeah, I'm defending the United States.
The country that yells death to America.
Right.
A United
I don't want our
States that
soldiers fighting this war. I don't want our soldiers fighting this war. I don't want American taxpayers.
You're using a straw man argument because our soldiers are not fighting this war.
But they're going to. It's like they could be any minute, and that's...
No, they're not.
What makes
they're not in Iran.
Well, what makes you say that? Because this whole thing is already so suspicious.
So the argument is we don't want them could be, but they're not now. So let's live in reality.
Well, Trump initially denied involvement, correct? And then he later went on and said he actually had full knowledge of everything going down the entire time.
Of course he did.
Okay.
With that said, though, can I tell you one thing? Okay, so Iran, while it hasn't officially pulled out of the non-proliferation agreement, they have violated both the spirit and the technical limits of the JCPOA.
But they're not in the JCPOA anymore. That doesn't exist.
But this is
Trump
right. You said that out of that deal because they violated it.
Oh my God!
But Anna, listen, the uranium
you guys have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
You just
the
said
JCPOA.
Anna, you don't need to be emotional. Just talk. Don't cry.
It is frustrating when people. Okay. The JCPOA is the Iran nuclear deal.
Right, you said
they pulled out of that in 2018.
Here's why.
You said they still complied after they pulled out.
They were still part of the non-proliferation treaty, which is
Anna,
separate.
Hold on, let a guy speak for a second. All you guys are doing is debating minor little details.
It's not minor though, Adam.
Are you pro-Iran or anti-Iran? It sounds like you're very much pro-Iran, and I don't understand that.
I'm not pro-Iran or anti-Iran.
The mental gymnastics you must do
pro-Israel or
to be anti-Israel, pro-Iran, pro-America. It's very hard to be what you are because you're very confused.
I know you guys use
on one hand you're pro-America, but then you're pro-Iran.
I know.
Hold on. You don't believe in Israel, but you believe in Iran.
Hang
it
on
makes
a
no
second.
sense to me.
It seems to me that you're concerned we are killing innocent people and we're getting America in another forever war.
Not only that.
Okay, but it's my understanding, and again, that Iran is not trustworthy. And I've heard this from numerous people. Our generous benefactor, Patrick Beck David included, that you cannot trust the government. So when I'm looking at examples of the ways they violated agreements, okay, they promised they would not enrich uranium beyond 3.67%, but they began enriching up to 20%.
When they were in the JCPOA.
But why did Trump pull out?
He pulled out because Bibi doesn't want the JCPOA. Bibi wanted to go to war with Iran. He's wanted regime change in Iran for decades.
So you're saying that Bibi Netanyahu controls Trump?
Trump's the most honest person in the world.
You're saying that Bibi Netanyahu controls Trump. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I think the Israeli government controls our government. Yes.
Well, that's your opinion.
No, it's not an opinion.
And you're wrong, but that's entitled to your opinion.
It's based on AIPAC.
So you're saying that Trump...
It's based on money and politics. It's based on the fact that Netanyahu go to the U.S. to invade Iraq and then didn't even send IDF soldiers. He had 4,000 of our soldiers die in Iraq based on a false premise of weapons of mass destruction.
River, like you care about American soldiers.
I do care about American soldiers, and I care about American taxpayers who spend trillions of dollars on this trash when we are dealing with $37 trillion in debt.
So now you're a fiscal conservative.
Yeah, I am a fiscal conservative when it comes to spending our resources on wars that we shouldn't be fighting on behalf of a foreign country.
Let me understand this. You're saying that Trump is so weak and such a pussy that he just listens to whatever Bibi does? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think he's weak or a pussy. I think he's transactional.
I
think he's transactional. And I think that he buys this ridiculous narrative that Iran was behind the 2 assassination attempts when there isn't even a shred of evidence other than Netanyahu declaring it.
Hold on, guys. Can we please talk about that as well? I feel like that's really, really important because they keep talking about how another attempt is going to come from Iran against Trump. And for me, one thing that I'm personally concerned about is A false flag.
Yeah.
Yes, and that could literally be laying the foundation
Anna,
for that
Iran
to be
is a peaceful regime, and you have to believe whatever they say.
You know,
They're
Adam,
great
I know
people.
it's difficult to debate me, but don't put words in my mouth.
And
don't
well,
make
I'm
arguments
just
that I did
summarizing
not
what you're
make.
saying. You're defending Iran.
No, I don't.
I would much rather defend Israel than defend Iran.
By the way, she's not just defending Iran. You go on X and you see a lot of people on the right, conservatives, who also completely agree with Anna. They don't want to see American lives taken. They don't want to spend trillions of dollars on another war.
Well,
nobody does.
So then what's your point? Let's say, okay, so China and Russia are now saying that they will back Iran. What are we to do then if we get in that position, Adam, where they're saying, okay, now American men on the front line, are you pro-America or are you pro-Israel?
I'm pro-America, but
Russia's
to answer your
Russia's not
question,
gonna do that.
Russia, this is all, you're talking about false flags. You're just throwing out false flags
I'm just saying,
like you're a fucking paid referee.
No, it's very easy for you
all right,
right
let me
now
talk
to
now.
say that
Let me
you
talk
would...
now. You asked me a question,
ahead,
I'll
Adam,
talk.
talk.
There's 3 camps here, and I wonder which one you're in. There's the pro-America, pro-democracy, pro-Israel, pro-NATO. Hey, I'm with you. And there's MAGA in there. There's level-headed Democrats, moderates. They're all there. The second camp, which I have friends with as well, they are isolationist, America first. Don't get involved in any foreign entanglements, foreign wars. I understand that narrative if you want to live as an ostrich in America. Then the third camp, which I'm wondering is chanting death to America, death to England, death to Israel. So I know which camp I'm in. I'm in the first camp. Which camp are you in? The isolationist camp or the hate America, hate Israel camp? Which camp are you in?
I'm in the camp of don't allow the Israeli government to lie to the American people and goad us into another war on their behalf. I'm in that camp.
So you're basically saying, Trump, listen to yourself, not anybody else.
What I don't. How about how about learn from recent history in which
you know whose instincts I trust more than you know instincts I trust? I trust Trump's instincts at this point.
Conversation that happened in the lead up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. But this is the exact same type of conversation that took place.
Okay, Saddam was letting inspectors in. Iran was not. Saddam was not offered a deal. Iran was. Saddam's group was not ideologically captured, and their mission was not death to America. And we all know that it wasn't just Netanyahu. It was all the neocons like Cheney and his whole company.
Yeah, those people are involved.
Let's not just lay this at the feet of Israel. It's all.
It is at the feet of Israel, though, Jillian. Well, it is at the feet of Israel.
Your blind hatred to Israel doesn't let you at least acknowledge the truth that she just told you, and you just shut down Jillian when she tried to feed you the truth.
Adam, you have no argument. You have no argument, Adam.
Just because you say
your only argument is
you
hate Israel. You hate Israel. That's not an argument.
Do you not?
I don't give a damn about Israel.
Well,
I give a damn about my own country. I don't give a damn about Iran. I don't care about Israel. I don't care about the United States of fucking America.
Really?
That's my country. And I'm sick of fighting wars on behalf of Israel.
Can other people talk other than Adam?
So when
and Anna?
9/11 happened, you're saying that they fought that on behalf of Israel?
Yes, I am saying that.
Okay, so you're blindly retarded.
No, I'm not blindly
congratulations.
retarded. I mean, there was a
mental gymnastics you must do to be able to validate Iran's existence is really impressive to me.
I think it's just you're being reductive, though. Like, they have put out 8 articles, at least, that I've seen since 1995 saying within 5 years they're going to have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to pretend like political propaganda exists, conditioning exists.
Great point by Amy, but you got to go deeper, sweetheart. Why have they not done further? Because Israel somehow keeps killing the nuclear scientists. If you want a profession to not go into in Iran, it's nuclear science. Because the closer and closer you get to a fucking degree, you're going to be eliminated. So use that for your talking point. Because why does it take longer and longer and longer? Because they keep getting eliminated. That's why.
Wait, guys,
who did Israel go after first?
Go ahead.
Nuclear scientists and generals. They're all dead. Start over. There you go.
You bring up a really good point.
Thank you.
I just want to say, if Trump and Republicans didn't believe that Iran was a threat, why did they take away Mike Pompeo's Secret Service protection as an insult? Do you understand? They did that to basically, knife the guy in the front. That's point number 2. Point number 1. Point number 2, Anna, I tried to say this earlier, but I wasn't able to. You said that Netanyahu controls Trump. Netanyahu couldn't even get Trump to visit him on his first foreign tour. He went to Saudi Arabia first. He couldn't. It was a huge insult to Israel because Bibi was fully expecting that.
The Israeli government has a massive amount of influence on our government. I didn't say Bibi controls Trump.
You did say that.
Okay,
though.
Maybe it's the other way around, that America has a massive control of influence on Israel.
I think
to say that a little tiny country is dominating America would be lying to yourself or just completely uninformed?
We have
You're saying that Israel controls America. How about America controls Israel?
That's
Maybe
hilarious.
It's the other way around.
Why are we paying for Israel's bombs?
Just like
the country that had an economic surplus in 2001 was Israel. I'm sorry, 2021.
What do you mean? Why is Israel buying bombs from America?
No. They're not buying bombs with their money. We're paying for their bombs. Okay? And they had an economic surplus in 2021. In the middle of a pandemic, they had an economic surplus. We haven't had an economic surplus since 2001. Why are we paying for their bombs?
And maybe because it's useful for us to have an ally in the Middle East. Like
they're not an ally. They're barely.
Hold on a second.
According to the U.S. government, they're definitely an ally.
They use us as a tool to fight their wars. That's what they are.
Your blind hatred of Israel doesn't allow you to be reasonable.
I would almost argue the opposite to a certain extent, that they almost often do our dirty work in some cases.
Like what?
Like taking out the nuclear scientists in Iran.
There's no question that we wanted this.
Taking out the nuclear scientists in Iran is going to lead to a full-blown war. But our soldiers
are already at war.
They're in a peace treaty as well, though. Like, how are we ever going to have diplomatic relations with? Like, do you think they're ever going to trust the American government, Trump, anyone ever again when they're in the middle of these negotiations?
There's no diplomatic relations with the psychopathic regime in Iran.
Hold on. I don't even know. Hold on. What? I'm sorry.
They were in the middle of their peace talks.
Who was?
The treaty.
Iran and Trump. Yes.
Yeah.
No, they were not.
Yes, they were. They had their final talks coming on Sunday.
Yes, Sunday.
They are saying we're never going to do a deal with America.
That's not true. They're coming on Sunday.
Amy, do yourself a favor. Don't succumb to her bullshit argument.
It's not just her. This is all over the
Trump gave them
marketplace.
60 days. Okay.
Exactly.
Not only did they not negotiate, they were like, bah ha ha.
Exactly.
So much so that I could not believe.
And what day did they attack on?
This is bizarre.
They were meant to meet on
61.
Sunday. They were meant to meet on Sunday.
Hey, we have 60 days of a peace treaty.
They struck them before that.
Okay, ready? He just said, still want to do a deal.
Yep.
Okay, where is it? Where is that
Give them the chance to get to the talks to be able to discuss the deal. Instead of first allowing this attack to happen, denying it at first, and then coming back and saying, we actually were complicit.
The truth is definitely somewhere in the middle.
I'm not pro-Iran. I'm not pro-Israel.
Let me show you the truth.
I'm just talking about what people are saying in the marketplace. You guys are acting like it is wild and saying these insane things. There's plenty of people who agree with her who are on the right.
That also don't.
I know.
There are military historians that are not ideologically captured, that fundamentally disagree and do see them as an existential threat. And while they are MAGA, their concern is, if you kick this can in order to, yes, focus on America, what do you get in a very short period of time? And the reality is, Iran is telling you who they are. In the words of Maya Angelou, believe them. I don't want any of the stuff you're talking about. And if you are right, God help me, that will be awful. But
I am right, and it will be awful.
I don't know that you are. Everybody said this about Soleimani, and they were wrong.
Okay, so
Anna,
hold on.
as much as I think you're great, you're not even willing to be reasonable.
Because there's a body of evidence that you guys won't even let me present. Like, you guys won't even let me make my argument.
Okay, so I'm going to talk.
You go, and then you can come back with your talk.
That's good.
Okay, Adam, go, and then let's go to Anna.
The problem that you have is the same problem that I had about 4 years ago when I joined the PBD podcast. I was so blind with hatred to Trump, I wasn't willing to be reasonable and hear the argument out. But here's what happened. I said, you know what? Instead of yelling every time somebody tries to talk, let me use these 2 ears and learn something. And now I said, you know what? Maybe they did lie about Russia. Oh, maybe they did. Oh, you know what? Maybe the media did play us. And I had to learn. I had to rewire my brain to understand that maybe everything I understood was not accurate. So now I'm one of the loudest, proudest MAGA people because I realized I was lied to.
Good
so
for
my
you,
hope
Adam.
for you is that when you say things like, I'm 100% right and I know everything, that is a very, very weak position to be in because you're not willing to even recognize the fact that maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Have you ever been wrong before? The answer is yes.
Of course I've been
Bingo.
wrong. Yes, of
Also,
course I've been
your
wrong.
argument
However,
has shifted
Lindy, let me
several
make my
times.
argument, please. Let me just make my argument without people jumping down my throat.
Go ahead.
Because I want to provide the...
Go ahead.
Dating back to the 1990s, Netanyahu was saying that Iran was days away from having a nuclear weapon. That was false. They don't have a nuclear weapon now. So this has been a multi-decade effort. Now,
do you acknowledge that they've been eliminating the scientists?
Do you acknowledge they have 6 to 10 bombs worth of enriched uranium and they just developed detonators?
Okay. They have,
do you hear what she said?
According to the IAEA, okay, and by the way, the head of the IAEA,
he's got some issues. Just said this.
Okay, but hold on. Tulsi Gabbard in March said they don't have a nuclear weapon and they're not building a nuclear weapon.
They said they were enriching uranium.
They do. Okay.
What are they doing that, to watch TV?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I understand where you're at.
Listen,
it's hard to make your argument when you don't have a standing
congratulations,
legislation.
Adam. We're going to send American soldiers to it.
We are. You can't
That's what
keep-
Netanyahu is pushing for right now.
But it doesn't mean that he's
think a
they're not
regime
there now,
change
so let's
war
live
is
in
going to be an
reality.
easy war to fight?
Let's play in realpolitik. Let's play in reality. If, woulda, coulda, shoulda. How about what's happening now?
Okay, let's go to Wesley
yes,
Clark.
no. They're not there
Let's go to
now.
Wesley Clark. Let's go to Wesley Clark.
Let her finish. Go.
I don't know if she has a point.
Okay.
It's my
Her
fault.
point is I'm pro-Iran
You
and I'm
wouldn't even let me make
anti-Israel.
my point.
I'm with you.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let her make her point. So,
Back in 2007, General Wesley Clark was told something that he found deeply, deeply problematic. This is in 2007. Let's watch the video. Let's put the volume up. Take a look.
And he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me, and he said, sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second. I said, well, you're too busy. He said, no. He says, we've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq. This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, we're going to war with Iraq. Why?
Why?
He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail.
Exactly.
But notice
So I came back to see him a few
the
weeks later.
neocons in the Republican Party are still in charge. They're still in charge. They still have quite a bit of sway, clearly, because unfortunately, going along with what Israel just did in striking Iran is going to lead to a full-blown war. Netanyahu isn't even hiding the ball. He's being very clear that he wants regime change in Iran. Iran is not Iraq, by the way. You're right about that, Jillian. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is far more superior in their military capacity and capability. It is a country of 90 million people, okay? The fact
Who
that
want
he's
to be free.
Okay, first of all, they do.
They
want.
a
Hold on.
Regime.
Iran
They beat women to death in the
Wait, hold on a second. I know. That's
it's okay. It's okay.
Guys, that
Let's
video
beat some
is
women.
Hold on. Yeah,
I've
sorry,
been trying to
go.
Okay, so that video
go.
was from 2007. Can we please all remember who the president of the United States is?
George Bush.
Well, right now, I mean, it's Donald Trump who ran on the platform of, come on, America First.
Right, he
who
did.
Ran
But
on
is he going to follow through on that?
Not intervening. I'm actually in. You talk about ostriches. I'm one of your ostriches. I don't want to get involved in other people's shit. I want to focus on all the problems we have here and just get it sorted out. I don't want to go overseas. So in that regard, I'm with you. I just think that you're fighting a straw man argument. I don't think we are in danger of going. I don't think we're in danger of sending our boys overseas. I just don't see that happening because this guy ran on a. You think MAGA is going to be okay?
There's a genuine concern that she has, without question.
Yeah,
there is.
Did you vote for Trump?
She's
No,
got
I did not vote.
You didn't vote for Trump?
No, I didn't. I didn't vote.
Hold on, let me ask this question. Who did you vote for?
I didn't vote for
Trump?
either candidate. I didn't like either candidate.
So you didn't vote for Trump.
Listen,
so you're
Adam,
not America First.
Adam, are you fucking kidding me right now?
You're not America.
You can be
didn't vote for
America
Trump.
First and not vote for Trump. Okay, America First means
if you were
want.
America First, you would have voted for
means you're
Trump.
a populist, and you are a populist.
I am a
correct?
populist, yes.
You're a progressive.
America First.
And respectfully, you're a progressive.
America First.
You're a Bernie Sanders
Who
progressive.
gives a fuck what I am, Adam? What I give a fuck about is what's
because
right
you're a
and
talking
what the
head on the
evidence
internet,
indicates.
and I think people should understand who you are.
Are you Israel First? Because
No, I'm
it sure
America
seems
First.
like it. No, you're not.
I'm
you're not.
America First.
You're not. You're not.
Because I voted for Trump, America
Because you
First.
constantly provide cover for
I
the
am
country
Jewish.
that we spend $3 billion on every year.
Are you?
In addition to every time they get into a war, we're the ones who shell out the money, shell out the money, shell out the money.
Are you Armenian?
While our Americans
Armenian?
are homeless, they're
Answer
sick
the
and
question,
dying,
yapping
and I'm
lady.
sick of this.
Are you
No.
Armenian?
Dude, why are you asking me questions about myself? This isn't about me.
You just
this
said
is
something
about a political issue.
You just said something about myself, so I'm asking
After
you a
you
question.
asked me about myself.
We're not even asking personal attacks. Let's grow up. Are you Armenian?
Yeah, I'm Armenian.
So do you care about Armenia?
I do care about Armenia.
So do you
yes.
do you want the best for Armenians?
I do want the best for Armenians.
Okay, that's
but if
great.
Armenia
So I feel
was
the same
trying
way
to
about
drag,
Israel.
if Armenia was trying to drag,
but I feel the same
listen
way
to
about
me.
Israel.
If Armenia was trying to
So
drag
what's
the
the
United
difference?
States into an offensive war on its behalf, I would have problems with
that. Well, that's kind of like your opinion, man.
Wait,
that's not the actual
That's
facts.
not an argument,
Can I ask one question?
But you just attacked me for being Jewish and so defending Israel.
I didn't attack you for being Jewish. Don't put words in my mouth.
You just
don't put words in my mouth.
Listen,
don't do this whole like, oh, you hate Jews bullshit.
Like you're the type of woman that
I'm talking about the policy.
As you're trying to talk, you just keep yapping.
Have you seen my husband? Trust me, I don't discuss men.
I'm sure your husband's very feminine.
Personal attacks. Stop. Here's
There's no way a real man would put up with this.
I completely lost track.
I'm just saying, no real man would want to hear this.
Listen,
if you a personal attack.
If you had an argument, you wouldn't.
You're Armenia first, are you not?
Okay, hold on. Does anybody have a legitimate...
Are you, like, literally retarded?
No,
guys,
pretty smart.
It seems like you're pretty retarded.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to call Vinny in here to start slapping people around if I can't control this. And my flag is not upside down on purpose. I cannot rotate the pin, so I'm not anti-American. With that said, okay, a genuine question for you. Okay, is it possible, and I'm obviously, there's no way to know if I'm right or I'm wrong here, but is it possible that some of the stuff you're talking about was actually the United States agenda and we utilized Israel to do our dirty work? Is it
What dirty work did they do for us?
But you're talking about Iraq, you're talking about...
Right.
For example,
is it possible? Answer the question.
But Israel didn't send IDF soldiers to fight in Iraq. We sent our soldiers to fight in Iraq.
She tried to ask you a question and you started answering it. Ask her the question.
But they backed us up with their intelligence. They gave...
Right. Their intelligence was that
Saddam
Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
This is what I'm saying.
Jillian, please ask that question.
Who was behind Iraq? Like, we know that it was Condoleezza Rice, it was Dick Cheney. Oh my God, I forgot the guy's name. The friggin'
Colin Powell.
Thank you, Powell. The other guy that was with Bush. It was
the devil.
Okay, my point is that was not just Netanyahu. And the thing is, what I get slightly concerned about is that we're like, look at this little country, they're evil. And it's that rhetoric scares me a lot. I do see all your concerns with Netanyahu. You're very legitimate to be concerned about it. But right now, if I could just step back, right, and say, as I've been watching Trump this first term, I've been completely confounded. I'm like, I just don't understand his one thing, like the one bad guy, the one like country that he was willing to conduct attacks on was Iran. He's like, I came out of that 2018 deal. They were dishonest. It was a terrible deal. They were allowed to enrich uranium, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever, believe true or not. He didn't do that to anyone else. Then it was, he took out ISIS. He went after Soleimani. He bankrupted the country. He's been genuinely concerned, and he didn't get us into any new wars. He wanted out of Afghanistan. He wasn't engaging in regime changes. So all of a sudden, it's like, I'm going to do a deal with Iran. I'm not going to put sanctions on Putin because he's going to cooperate in a deal with Iran, which does that mean Putin's going to look the other way if I don't put sanctions on him for Ukraine?
Cooperate with Ukraine, you mean, right?
I'm saying Trump said after that whole Operation Spiderweb thing fell apart, he still didn't put sanctions on Putin. But he turned around and he's like, well, I talked to Putin for an hour and 15 minutes. There's not going to be any peace over there. But we talked about a deal with Iran. He's going to be helpful. Obviously, they clearly discussed that this was going to happen. My point is, the administration knew. The administration wanted to do this. I don't think Netanyahu is pulling Trump's strings. I think Trump has had a bone to pick with Iran since his first term. And I worry that if we're like, Israel's doing this, that there's a Venn diagram there with that makes me very nervous with regard to...
Jill, do you understand why I say Israel is doing this? It's because of the long history of Israel trying to goad us into war with Iran. That's why I'm saying it. Again, it's Netanyahu's own words dating back to the 1990s. You say that Israel helps us with intelligence. Okay, well, I wonder where we got our intelligence that Iraq had nuclear weapons.
No, that was
or weapons of mass destruction.
There was no intelligence. It was a lie. We knew it was a lie.
But where did that lie come from?
It came from Cheney.
It wasn't just Cheney. Cheney in the very, very, very beginning.
All those neocons they didn't have WMDs.
Let me just finish my point.
Okay.
Cheney in the there's a really great book about this, okay, if you guys want to read, and it's full of evidence. So it's called The Israel Lobby, okay? In the very, very, very beginning of this whole debate about whether or not the United States should do a preemptive war in Iraq, Cheney wasn't convinced, believe it or not. But he was eventually convinced with the intel, allegedly, that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
I read another book called Provoked, written by Scott Horton, and his argument is that Cheney wasn't convinced until Halliburton was bankrupt.
There's an oil component.
Get into the whole mix. So there's differing perspectives on this. I would simply ask you, Iran, you don't see them as a threat. They didn't They didn't come to the table. They had an opportunity to.
But Jill, they did. They did come to the table.
60 days.
The gaslighting on this issue is unbearable, and it's very reminiscent of the gaslighting that took place in the lead up to Iraq.
Why are they the top state funders of terror?
I think Iran poses a national security threat to Israel.
I don't agree with you.
They do, though.
That is true, right?
No, to Israel and
Yeah.
They destabilize the entire Middle East. The Saudis can't stand them. The Qataris can't stand them.
Look, listen.
Do you understand what she just said? She's bringing a very good point to the table.
Syria reached out to Israel and said, we want to expand. What if, in my dream world, and I am not saying you are wrong, there's a very good chance that you're right. I'm simply trying to open up the possibility that Trump doesn't want forever wars. He hasn't engaged in regime change to date, okay? That now his goal is to win a peace prize. He's trying to expand the Abraham Accords. Syria reached out to Israel and said, we want in. Does it free up that region to stabilize things with these, I mean, I'm sorry, bad actors and evil regime, arguably defanged?
Yeah. Afghanistan is currently governed by the Taliban.
You're not wrong.
Okay. In Syria, we have a former ISIS and Al-Qaeda agent now leading that country. And then in Libya, I mean, you want to talk about destabilizing the Middle East. No country has destabilized the Middle East on Israel's behalf than the United States of America by overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya. By the way, that happened under Obama. This is not a Republican or Democrat thing. Both parties are complicit or actively involved in the regime change wars that have cost American lives, cost American resources. And I just ask that we maybe think this through a little more before we start beating the war drums.
But hold on. I just want to say again that I'm an isolationist. I think that if you cannot, for most Americans, they can't even pick Iran on a map, we should not get involved. Like, this is not our business. That is my point of view. I want to wash my hands of the situation. I don't want to get involved. That said, Anna, respectfully, you fail to mention that the people who, like, for example, the Taliban, it's a moderated version of the Taliban, who has made concessions. Also, the guy from Al-Qaeda.
Oh, okay. That's
I understand they're bad, but it's a less bad version. We have to acknowledge that, though, because the guy who is now running Syria, he has made attempts and has very vocally said that I am not who I used to be. Right. I'm reformed. I just want to say that. This is not like your pure version of Al-Qaeda. It's not the Taliban of your grandfather, so to speak.
The United States should not be in the business of carrying out regime change wars anywhere.
Is this
period?
That, though, or is it
I agree with that, but Trump is not going to because he ran on America.
Look,
first.
We're making right on the regime change thing. I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay.
I'm just saying, is this that? Because they are pretty freaking scary.
Well, that's the first video that you were going to play, right? That was where he was trying to appeal to people's emotions because he knows that people are against child brides. They're against all of these things. So, of course, that's going to be the main rhetoric used when putting out this video.
I just don't think that's our business.
I don't
Why do we
think that's
need to get
the rhetoric.
involved?
The rhetoric is they are the freaking top funders of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Shia militia. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Then let's let Israel deal with it.
Thank you, Lindy. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, then we're in agreement about this.
Let Israel handle it. I don't think the United States taxpayers should fund that war. And I don't think, look, if they need defensive support, okay, fine. But no boots on the ground.
We already provided that with
and absolutely no more American taxpayer money. Israel should pay for its own bombs.
I agree with you. Why don't you just say it at the beginning?
So you have a problem? Do you have a problem with the fact that currently the United States funds Israel's wars? We provide them over $3 billion a year in military aid. Do you want that to come to an end?
So, no, and I'll tell you why. Because what you're doing is a disservice to all the other countries that the United States gives money to.
No, I disagree.
We give money to Palestine. We give money to Egypt. We give money to every single country in the world.
Currently, Israel is carrying out ethnic cleansing and genocide of Palestinians. So, I mean,
a genocide.
Yeah, it is a genocide.
And there's no other genocides going on in the world. It's just
we
Israel.
don't fund those genocides. We fund this genocide.
Pretty sure we fund a lot of
this
things
genocide.
right here.
Instead of just blaming everything on Israel, though, can we also...
Wait, hold on.
Wait, can I just...
really don't
Hold on. Can I... Let me finish that point.
Things you mentioned, we were behind. I just want to be clear.
That's not Jill. You bring up a really good point. Let me expand on that. Instead of just throwing everything and scapegoating Israel for all the problems under the sun, why not look at our own military-industrial complex and ask why are we, not just Israel, though, in Ukraine, billions of dollars gushing all around the world. Right. And instead of blaming, the Israelis for this, why not ask the defense contractors who are constantly lobbying our senators and congressmen for additional funding, right?
That's
so
a problem
it's not just not all Bibi. Okay?
It's not all Bibi.
He's a problem, but he's not the only problem. We also have to look here at home.
But it is a happy marriage when you have the government of Israel pushing us to fight a war, and when you have defense contractors who see a profitable opportunity to exploit that situation on their behalf. And this is the same thing that keeps playing out over and over again. Again, I'm just asking, look at the evidence, look at what Netanyahu has been saying for decades, look at the lies that we're told about other Middle Eastern wars that we got dragged into. I want to prevent that. I want American soldiers to fight wars to defend the United States when it's necessary. I have not seen enough evidence, or any evidence really, to indicate that Iran is a national security threat to the United States.
America, what do you think they mean? Because I'm taking them at face value. I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, look.
You think they want a pillow fight? What do they want when they're chanting death to America? What do you think they want?
Listen to me. I don't think that they favor the United States. Okay.
Favor.
But the idea that they're chanting
death for America.
Right. I mean, people chant all sorts of things, but we're going to go to war.
What I'm saying is that Trump is not going to. I just don't think
we need to
minimizing the whole death to America.
I am minimizing it.
Okay,
I am minimizing
well, then there we go.
I am minimizing it because I need to see actual evidence that they're carrying out acts. I just said attack against the United States, and there's no evidence of that.
Okay.
First of all,
so if you were America first, you would say, hold on, some countries falling, trying to call for America's death. I wouldn't minimize that. I would actually take that at face value. And that's why Trump is behind Bibi Netanyahu on this. Because you know what America First stands for? Three things.
It really means
they're anti-globalist, okay? Anti-Marxist, anti-CCP, and ready for it? Anti-Islamic terrorism. So I know on behalf of Iran, while you're defending Anna, for some reason, you're kind of advocating for Islamic terrorism. I actually believe Iran.
No.
I actually,
do not
hold on,
strawman me.
I'm talking,
I never
then you
said
go.
that. No, but I'm not going to let you lie about the argument I'm making.
You just said
I never said that.
You just said you're okay with death to America.
I don't think people
you just said you're okay
things.
with death to America.
I don't think chants justify hot wars.
What do you think? They're chants, and then they're just like they're doing pom poms and they're rooting for a football game.
How far down the road do you want to let them get?
They're trying to destabilize the West.
Wait, guys, we destabilize the entirety of the Middle East. I don't blame anyone for being angry with the United States over that.
But it is now
Iran is the sole
we have the Abraham Accords
of destabilizing the Middle East.
No.
Saudi knows it.
No.
By the way, here's a little fun fact for you.
You have to ask yourself what role they are playing.
If all the countries in the Middle East were actually against what Israel is doing, you would hear statement after statement after statement condemning Israel. I don't hear shit from the Emiratis. I don't hear shit from the Saudis. I don't hear shit from the Qataris, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Syrians. Syrians are cheering on Israel. So here's my question for you.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
All of Israel's enemies are cheering for Israel against Iran.
They're definitely on board.
And the people of Iran are cheering for Israel.
The Saudis,
so you have a losing side. You're taking the 20% of an 80-20 issue. Best of luck.
You literally just made my argument.
No,
Why do you think Israel pushed for regime change in these countries? They wanted to get rid of leaders that weren't friendly.
These very same,
in Saudi?
Libya, Afghanistan, they tried, but we failed.
You know who pushed for regime change in Syria? The Syrian people that overtook Bashar al-Assad.
Right.
Your arguments are weak and invalid.
That had the United States involved, Israel involved, Russia involved. That was a major proxy war.
If Russia gave two shits about Syria and had the wherewithal to do it, they would defend Syria, and so would Iran. But because they're being flanked by Ukraine and Iran is being defunded by Israel, nobody can come to Syria's defense.
Israel should fight its own wars.
Now, the people of Syria are going to have to decide
we shouldn't send any of our soldiers, and when we do, inevitably,
Anna, just say
I want to come back on the show.
First. That's fine.
No, I'm not going to say it because I don't believe that.
Can we just stop and remember who the president is? Everyone is underestimating the strength of Donald Trump.
Giving us 5 minutes before we move on.
There's no way he's going to let himself be pushed around by anybody, including Netanyahu.
The final thing I'll say about this, and then we can move on, is we currently have a United States Congress that's nickel and diming the fuck out of Americans by focusing on cuts to Medicaid, SNAP benefits. In the meantime, we are sending tens of billions of dollars to Israel so they can fight their wars.
But you got to remember, that money isn't just going to Israel, it's going back home.
Let me say one thing.
No,
I agree
it's
with you,
going to defense contractors, Lindy.
So
I don't give a fuck about defense contractors making more money. I think that's the problem.
So, Lindy, let me say one thing.
Let me say one thing.
She's saying exactly that it's not just.
It's priming our economic.
If you ever done a budget before?
No.
That money.
Do not make the mistake of thinking defense contractors fattening their pockets even more is somehow beneficial to the American
Anna,
people.
you just heard me make that. I'm just saying
it's not that.
You're saying the money is going all the way overseas. I'm saying it's also coming back here.
She's trying to get you to see the role that we're playing.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know, but do you understand that it is a redistribution of wealth?
I'm isolationist. I don't want this happening.
I know, Lindy,
okay?
I'm not going to direct this to you. I'm just going to direct it to the audience or in general, okay? This is a redistribution of wealth from working class Americans to defense contractors.
I don't want it happening.
Because of Netanyahu.
Right.
Well, I mean,
I think he's a factor. I don't think he's the only factor.
Bibi likes to push false narratives about, this country's a big threat. American soldiers, go fight this war. Go fight this war. Give me money. Give me money. Give me money. That's Netanyahu.
You have to give our people a little bit more credit than trying to be.
I do give our people credit, including the actual genuine America First crowd that does not want this war. They don't want this war. The left doesn't want this war. Actually, this is the one issue where it seems like there's some unity. With contingents
the gays
on
for
both
Gaza
sides.
and the isolationists have teamed
what
up
I'm saying is
to be
there's
basically
no war.
anti-America.
That is absolutely the truth. The far left sees Jews as having all the white privilege and being the ultimate imperialists. And then the MAGA far right sees the Jews as being responsible for all of this. And it equals a real bad situation for the Jews. I'm being friggin' honest.
If you're
doing the same thing that they've done for years, they blame the Jews for everything. That's fine. That's cool. That's your argument.
If you're concerned about anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is real, and it has increased. Hold on, it has increased significantly in the United States. You want to know why?
Yeah, tell me why.
When you see the slaughter of all those innocent kids in Gaza, and our government provides cover for it and, in fact, funds it, that leads to a lot of rage among hardworking Americans who see their quality of life go down the drain as we're funding a genocide.
Kids being killed.
Can we bottom?
And I would love to see Hamas leave.
Right, it's not about Hamas. Let's
Can we talk about
if Hamas would, in all fairness, listen, I agree with you. I agree with you. The other side, though, because there are two sides, why didn't Hamas just give the friggin' hostages back? Then there'd be no excuse for
I agree. Hamas should have given the hostages back, 100%. But let's also acknowledge when there is a siege on Gaza, when there are Israeli and American, by the way, hostages being held captive by Hamas, they're not just starving those poor Palestinian civilians, they're also starving their own hostages. Let's also not forget about the fact that the IDF shot and killed 3 Israeli hostages themselves. They didn't ask any questions, immediately started firing, killed 3 people. We need to actually have an honest conversation. Well, I mean, they didn't ask any questions. They were literally shirtless, waving white flags, saying, we need help, we need help. They got shot and killed immediately. The IDF is super belligerent in how they're carrying out this war. They're killing a lot of innocent people. In the case that I'm outlining, I'm talking about 3 Israeli hostages. If you're not willing to be critical of Israel, I question how honest you're being about this whole situation.
I'm critical of Israel just like I'm critical of America.
Can we
Lindy,
hold on.
If America makes mistakes, I'll call them out. But I'm very pro-America. But we do make mistakes. If Israel makes mistakes, I'll call them out. But I'm very pro-Israel. I don't understand what you're doing when you're trying to be pro-Hamas and pro-Iran. Hold on.
When you strawman me, it makes this entire exchange fall apart.
So
I'm trying to have an honest exchange with you. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Please don't put words in my mouth.
You can talk when I'm done talking, and that's how this will work. No?
But if you strawman me, and argue that I'm making arguments that I didn't make, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you if you lie about what I'm saying.
So you're a grown-up when you argue. Got it.
I am a grown-up, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you seem very emotional, and I threw you a tissue just in case. I also have a tampon in case you need a tampon.
Adam, she's going to beat the shit out of you.
That's fine.
That's fine.
It's a tampon just in case you start crying.
I'm not deterred by your ridiculous juvenile attacks. Let's have an argument about the actual facts.
Israel is fighting terrorists around the world. And in this one particular situation, why isn't Israel doing genocide in Lebanon? Why aren't they doing it in Syria? Why aren't they doing it everywhere else? Why is it only in Gaza? By the way, why is Gaza
because they want to clear Palestinians out of that land and take it. That's why.
And let's say that were the case, which it's not.
It is.
Why couldn't they do that? Because that's what everyone has done in that region for decade and after century.
Wait, why couldn't they do what?
The Islamization of the entire Middle East, who's the centerpiece of that? Okay?
These have been First of all, these have been Muslim majority countries forever.
And why is every Muslim country fighting with each other? Syrians fight with Syrians. 500,000 people died in Syria. 1 million people have died in Sudan. In Sudan. 500,000 people have died in Yemen. I don't hear bo peep about any of that. But when Israel gets attacked on October 7th, that's all you want to talk about. I'd give you a little bit more credit if you were talking about the Christians that are being killed in Syria. I'd give you a little bit more credit if you would talk about the millions of Muslims that have died around the Middle East. But you guys don't say shit unless Israel's involved. That's the problem I have
because
for you.
we fund Israel's wars of aggression.
So just because we fund it, we're not allowed to talk about anything else? So we can't talk about the genocide in every other country?
I talk about foreign policy in different contexts all the time.
The only thing I've ever heard you talk about is Israel. You're obsessed with Israel.
Well, then you need to get to know me a little better.
Trump derangement syndrome, you have Israel derangement syndrome. And it's seeping out left and right. I hope and pray that you stop being so ignorant to the fact that Israel is defending America and American values against terrorists
How are they defending
around the
America?
Middle East.
How?
Let's say that Iran was a threat, which a lot of people think they are.
They are. Let's not even hypothetical.
People think so. And I know there's a lot of credible and intelligent people who don't, right? And unfortunately, time's going to tell how this is going to play out.
I don't know too many credible or intelligent people that don't think Iran is a threat.
But then the argument on the other side is that Israel is doing the dirty work and getting demonized for it. That is the argument on the other side.
Also, Adam, can I also say a couple of conversations ago, Adam, you brought up something very interesting that we haven't even addressed. It's the Islamic terrorism and then Islamification of Europe and also America. If you're going to talk about...
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Wait,
yes,
I'm definitely not getting to know Kings today.
Let's talk about that. And I really appreciate everything you brought up. And, you know, the Israeli regime does deserve to be criticized on occasion. But we also have to look at this extreme threat of Islamic terrorism that is here at home. I mean, do I even need to mention 9/11? We just had a shooting a couple weeks ago against the Jewish community, right?
Our regime change wars have spurred Islamist groups like ISIS to pop up.
But you don't
what about
know that this is that yet.
Okay.
You don't know
All right,
that
so
yet.
then let's end it here.
The Iranian Revolution started in 1979.
Let's end it here. Let me just say one more thing. Let me say one more thing.
Because
Can we play that clip?
When we inevitably get dragged into this war, when we inevitably end up spending tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion, depending on how long that war with Iran lasts, will you guys come back on this show and at least admit I was right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Conversely, though,
what's the question? Say it again.
Within 6 months, and Iran is defanged in the Abraham Accord, this is a pipe dream, I get it. But if it ends within 6 months, Iran is defanged. I don't know if there'll be a regime change. I have no idea. I haven't heard talk of that yet. Obviously, I know that we wouldn't be hearing that because nobody is for that. In fact, Trump denied involvement because it's so friggin' unpopular. I get it. But if in 6 months this is resolved, it's like Soleimani, it came, it went, Iran is defanged, and the Abraham Accords are expanded, will you admit that?
Yeah, of course.
Because what I'm saying is that Trump is not going to allow himself to be dragged in. I just don't think it's a possibility.
You have way too much. Look, I don't have that much faith in any politician.
I'm not saying, you know that I'm not MAGA. What I'm saying is he ran on America first. He ran on isolation.
But guys, I just want you to remember one thing, because you brought up Yemen. I'm so happy you brought up Yemen, Adam. Thank you for doing that, okay? Because the United States assisted Saudi Arabia in fighting the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Who are, of course, backed by Iran. Now, did we beat the Houthis in Yemen?
It's still going.
It's still going. So I bring that up because if anyone is under the assumption that a regime change war in Iran is going to be a cakewalk, they have another thing coming.
Okay, but Trump
who said
bankrupted
cakewalk?
them,
Who said
and it
cakewalk?
made a huge difference.
It's going to be a massive endeavor.
He choked them out financially.
Which means that the U.S. is going to get dragged into that war, Adam. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, so what you're arguing is a hypothetical, and I hear you on that. Nobody wants the United States to get involved in more wars. I'm with you on that.
Agree.
But you're arguing a hypothetical as if it's fact.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I had with you. It's like, we can't have this, we can't want this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but it's not happening right now.
And it
so let's argue what's happening.
So let's not happen the first time. It doesn't happen, right?
But Lindy's bringing up probably the most important point, because we're so fixated on Israel. Lindy's talking about the Islamization of European Christian cities.
Yeah, do you know why that's happening? Because of refugee crises due to wars that destabilize these Muslim-majority countries.
I think it's intentional.
Like a Syrian civil war.
Yes.
Like a Yemeni civil war.
I think it's an intentional foreign
invasion. Like the Libyan war, regime change war.
I don't think it's just a humanitarian crisis. I think there's an intentional
it's a fundamental ideology
to destroy Western. They say that. It's a campaign to destroy Western civilization.
When Western civilization destabilizes your home, your country, that leads to a lot of rage, and I can understand why. If some other country invaded us, destabilized the United States of America, believe me, I'd be out on the streets chanting death to whatever country as well.
They're not just doing that. They're coming over to our countries, invading us, killing our people.
Who's invading us and killing us?
What politicians are creating the incentives to bring them in. Like, this is a system problem as well. It's systemic, you know. But honestly, listen, guys. I saw a post that says, I am smart enough to know I'm too retarded to comment on this. I'll agree with that. What I can say is I feel like nearly all of you have been incredibly reductive of Anna's points. She's not just this insane progressive person who's spewing this leftist rhetoric. This is real issues that people have on the right as well.
Wait, I'm saying that we should not get involved.
Pretending that there could not be repercussions in place where we could go to a war, and you guys are saying, oh, it's just based off a hypothetical. This could happen.
That's not true.
So you're defending her hypothetical. I'm trying to live in reality, guys.
100%. I also presented an alternative that is possible. And the reality is we don't know yet. My deepest concern on a personal level, and I have no connection to this and no dog in this fight, is to see it all being focused on Israel when there are many different factors at play here that you mentioned, and you mentioned, and you mentioned. And that is the one thing, it's like, time's going to tell. Your concerns are very real, and I agree with you. I hope to God you're wrong. And I also think Adam makes some great points. And we just don't know yet if this is a catastrophe in the making or potentially this Pollyanna version that I laid out earlier.
Can we at least address that you guys are forming your opinion based on a hypothetical that Iran is a national security risk and threat to the United States?
No, I'm saying that it's not our business and Trump won't get dragged in.
Just like ISIS wasn't a threat to the United States.
You're forming your opinion based on your extreme faith in Trump.
No, I don't have an extreme faith in him. I don't. I'm not MAGA. You know that. I'm not one of those like MAGA heads. I'm just not. I'm just saying this guy ran. When someone talks, let's believe them. He's saying he doesn't want America in forever wars. That's what he ran on. It's one of the bedrocks. In addition to immigration, mass deportations, he ran on getting us out of foreign entanglement.
So let's see if that happens.
Let's see if that happens.
He has tried so hard.
You're right. Let's see if that happens.
You can say a lot of things about Donald Trump, but there's one thing you cannot say, and that's his effort and willingness to deliver on his campaign promises. Look at the lengths he is going to prosecute those mass deportations. He is fighting hard to carry through his campaign promises. So let's take a step back. It's been 48 hours, right? Our math is terrible. Let's see what he does, and let's see if he keeps his promise to keep us out of forever wars. Because Anna, I agree with you. We have nothing. I want nothing to do with it. Okay.
Okay.
Well, has Trump
respect that.
retracted his promise? You brought up immigration. I mean, we're not going after people who are in the hospitality industry anymore.
Okay, so let's shift gears. You guys have all set the segue. I know you made a great segue.
But you got to give Trump a little credit.
Let's give him time. It's been 48 hours.
Give Trump a little bit of credit because what he's doing is threading the needle. My homegirl Batya said this, threading the needle of the MAGA right that basically doesn't want any more foreign wars.
Good for them.
And the progressive left that says don't fund Israel anymore, and also Israel saying, hey, we want your back. What Trump is doing, and this is sort of counterpoint to what you're saying, is I don't listen to any of you mother suckers. I'm going to do me, and I believe that about Trump.
I do too.
At this point, I believe Trump is going to do Trump, and Trump is basically saying the following. I don't want Iran with nuclear missiles. I don't want anything with them. I don't trust them at all. We give them 60 days. On day 61, I coordinated with Bibi Netanyahu to handle this, despite what the narrative was from Marco Rubio, like, yeah, they acted unilaterally. Trump knew. Bet on that.
100%.
Number two, the Israeli lobby that are basically saying, attack Iran, attack Iran, attack Iran. Trump's obviously not listening to them because he's not captured by Bibi. Because if he was, he'd have American boots on the ground. So it's sort of counterintuitive to saying that he owns Trump because Trump hasn't done anything. And the progressive left is basically saying free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. Trump don't give a shit about Palestine.
No, I know
Trump
that.
Understands
believe me, I know that. Apparently, the international community doesn't care about Palestinians
Trump
at all.
Trump understands that the real threat is free Iran. And what his massive point is to do is what he wants to do is free the people of Iran. I agree with you on one thing. We should have taken all our efforts for the past 2 decades, not on Afghanistan, not on Iraq, not on any of this nonsense, and gone to the head of the octopus, so they say, which is Iran. And when Iran falls, and it will, you're going to come down here and thank the free people of Iran, because you're going to see people in Iran saying, thank God I'm free, thank you, Trump, thank you, Israel. That's what's going to happen.
So public opinion polls in Iran do indicate that Iranians absolutely want regime change.
80%.
However, hold on. However, it also indicates they are not in favor of Israel coming in and doing regime change. They do not want that.
Well,
it
then
should
it's
happen
too bad,
organically.
because that's the only person that's going to happen.
No,
organically is not an option.
Organically is an option.
There was a revolution. Because what are you going to bring pillows to a pillow fight?
There was a Velvet Revolution in Armenia.
Assets.
Hold on. There was a revolution in Armenia recently. No one heard about it. You want to know why? Because it was a non-violent revolution. They threw out the old regime. And there's a new regime in Armenia right now. So that happened organically. The Armenian people rose up, mass protests, demands for regime change, and they got it. Having a third party, a foreign country come in and carry out regime change is not the way to go, especially when that foreign country wants to install a puppet regime that's going to do their bidding.
Okay, so
they don't want that.
Ideologically, I hear what you're saying.
Call me out for being
but in reality, they're not doing any of that.
Hold on. Let's stop litigating what happened within the last century. It's all very real and very true. Right now, as mentioned, everybody has presented facts that everybody should be thinking about and considering, and it's going to come out in the wash, period. And unfortunately, you know, we cannot see the forest through the trees right now, and we've all been through a lot. We're beleaguered from these foreign wars. Let's just, we have no choice. But by all means, please speak your truth, educate yourself. Moving on. Okay, no kings.
All right.
Speaking of Trump. Poor guy. All right. Well, maybe not. On June 14th, 2025, a nationwide protest dubbed No Kings, a day of defiance, erupted across all 50 states. Over 2,000 events in total. Organizers claimed it was a stand against the authoritarian overreach of President Trump. Timed deliberately to counter his birthday, the ICE raids, and the highly publicized military parade. Now, while many of these gatherings were peaceful, we all know that you had a few cities break out into violence. Portland turned chaotic. Los Angeles, of course, we know that's a shit show. Minnesota, the very sad assassination of the two politicians. I think there were two others.
And their spouses.
Right, but they didn't die, the other two, did they?
No, they didn't.
Right, okay.
Both of their spouses died.
What?
Yeah, the two people who were shot died.
Oh, no, so there were two others that were injured.
Oh,
and he did have the suspect had a No Kings flyer in his car, which is what connects them to this, quote, movement. There were also issues in Salt Lake. There was a shooter that opened fire on the crowd. Just to make sure everyone gets this, it had nothing to do with ICE, police, military. It was a random psychopath in the group. Okay. So now we told you last week that this was very organized and very well funded by very nefarious sources. And I think it's crucial that we look at what's really going on here because it is tearing apart the fabric of our society. Cuomo did a great piece on this. Let's take a look.
These protests are fed by dark sources with a desire for our destruction. One of the main players in organizing and funding the Los Angeles protests is a group called CHIRLA. CHIRLA, acronym, Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights. They have received millions in government grants and state grants, but now reports are showing that there may be a foreign link, specifically from China, funding and organizing these protests. The pro-Chinese far-left Party for Socialism and Liberation, they're known as the PSL. They are working with CHIRLA, helping fund the protests in Los Angeles and maybe elsewhere. Remember, all the parties in China are controlled by the CCP. So this is China. And the party is pushing to destroy capitalism and the West. This is its agenda. This is what China wants. They even have a term for the effort. It's called the smokeless war, where they have this theory of how they'll destroy the West without actually taking to the battlefield. That's what they did during the anti-Israel campus protests. The PSL worked hand in glove with anti-Zionist student groups and helped organize and fund the Columbia campus encampments. Now it gets scarier. Where does the PSL get its money? Enter Shanghai-based socialist billionaire Neville Singham. 2017, he sold his tech company for about $1 billion. Reports show the same year he started funding far-left groups like the PSL to the tune of millions. Singham is not America's friend. He has deep business ties to the CCP, but also has strong ideological ties to communism, period. People who worked for him says he's an admirer of Mao, Che Guevara, Hugo Chavez, not friends of American culture. According to the New York Times, Singham has funded and developed a deep global empire of pro-China nonprofits in the media and grassroots political space, steering millions into these groups over the years, including the PSL. And guess who was associated with the PSL and other Singham-funded groups? Elias Rodriguez. Ring a bell? This scumbag, the 30-year-old Chicago man who murdered 2 Israeli staffers in cold blood last month to make a political point.
Okay, so the bottom line is that real grass movements don't launch with merch stores and cohesive branding and synchronized media rollouts, okay? Yet No Kings had all of that on day one. The coordinated aesthetic, this is not an accident, guys. This is psychological priming. And when people see a fully packaged movement, it's giving the illusion of mass consensus. I mean, I've seen it. Everyone's like, millions of us showed up. Millions showed up.
It's called astroturfing.
It's bingo. And even the slogans and the hashtags, they're not spontaneous. So the messaging is A/B tested by professional firms like Berlin Rosen, M&R, and Purpose. All these guys are embedded in the funding network of these dark money organizations. These firms test everything, from the phrasing they use to the color of their friggin' No Kings flyer. It is bonker shorts. This is not a crowd, it is a machine, and they don't stop there. I want you to take a look. They literally pay people to go out and riot. Now, can you show me that paid rioters clip at 1 minute 40 seconds? And then I'm passing it to Amy because she's done some serious research on this.
I am right now. I am representing myself, and I am representing the folks at Rise and Resist who have been trained
so Rise
to
and
be
Resist.
marshals.
How much do they pay you to wear this vest?
Absolutely nothing.
Really?
So I did some digging, and the woman trying to stop my interview is named Karen Shaw. She is a professional protester. I found her at almost 100 different protests. Let's look at her portfolio, shall we? Here's her outside Trump Tower saying TikTok time's up. Here's her saying ban guns, not drag. Amazing. This is her telling us that lies have consequences. She is also very passionate about abortion. Even in the video right now, she's just wearing a hat that says abortion on it. This is deranged behavior, by the way. I studied psychology in college, and I'm confident that I can diagnose this person as insane. Sometimes she gets less creative, though, and just holds a sign that says enough. Now, here I found her working with a different professional protester that I've exposed.
Super low
This is
effort.
Stuart Waldman. He was there when they raised the Palestinian flag over City Hall in Rhode Island.
Everyone knows you.
Everyone knows me?
You are. They know what you do.
I know what you do as well, Stuart Waldman. You are on the board of riseandresist.org, the company that is paying people like Karen for a second job as a professional protester. And the donation link to give you money is just Act Blue, which is the fundraising platform for the Democrat Party. That's who you are, Stuart Waldman.
Okay, kill it.
Now,
pass.
I mean, so we actually saw a very similar thing during the LA riots as well, where there were actually Craigslist ads that were put out that have since been removed. Nat, I did send that to you on Slack. I'm not sure if you want to pull it up. But they were really getting people fired up for the continuation that was the No Kings protest. And it's so ironic to me because only in a free country do you have the ability to go and scream about kings apparently ruling. You try going to a country with a king and just see how far that takes you. So it's so ridiculous.
Did you see what happened in Canada? They have a king, so they changed it to no tyrant.
Oh, yeah, that is so cringe. Oh, my gosh. But yeah, there's a number of really kind of just super, super bad groups funding this. We're going to start with the one that is kind of from the inception, which is 5150. And this is actually a movement that was started on Reddit shortly after Trump's re-election. And basically their main goals are they want to remove Trump, they want to reinstate DEI across basically every single aspect of government. They want to attack Elon Musk, and they want to mobilize anti-ICE protests across all 50 states. That's kind of what their name implies, 5150. 5051, sorry. Then, of course, you have CHIRLA. Chris Cuomo did a fantastic job at explaining the way this organization has taken money from the government, from taxpayers, and has used it to absolutely sow discord all throughout the community. One thing that he missed there that I find particularly interesting is that this organization actually donated nearly $500,000 to Gavin Newsom when they were questioning his governorship and they were trying to take it away from him. They invested nearly $500,000, and then after he won and was able to maintain that governorship, he then returned the favor and provided them all of this funding. Now, this group is responsible for putting out something called a migrant alert, which is basically triangulating the position of ICE officers to give people forewarning, also to be able to tell them to go in and to, sow chaos wherever they need to go and do that. And so CHIRLA is also responsible for that. And then, of course, you do have the PSL as well. Now, the way that you can look at it is there's a marriage between these two things. One of them is all of the infrastructure, right? So like the CHIRLA alerts, for example. But when it comes to PSL, that's when you're talking about your manpower, the bodies. They're trying to recruit people, recruit bodies to bring them to places to, like you said, create this consensus that this is the populist opinion. So that's how the two of these groups are, coincided and they're working together. And both of them, of course, receive a lot of money. They receive money for everything from Soros-adjacent funds. And of course, it can be difficult to track these things because they create shell companies and create like a layer of separation between them and the company that they're actually investing into, so that way their name can stay out of it. But we did definitely see some Soros influence here. They bankrolled all of the legal teams, his open society foundations, bail funds, and activist training groups that work alongside them. So the way to see this is that CHIRLA and PSL, they're two heads of one beast, and then Soros, the CCP, and other dark money funding are the ones who are funneling all the resources in to get them to carry out their dark, sick agenda. Absolutely. But my only question is why? Like, what are they looking to achieve with this? And for me, I do have a couple of theories. Float them really quick. Let me know what you guys think. The first one, Palantir, again, not to be a super conspiracy theorist, but we are seeing a bunch of right-wing populist influencers saying, send in Palantir right now to deal with all of the protests, to deal with the illegals trying to change public sentiment. If things get bad enough, it's like problem, reaction, solution. That's the philosophy. That's not
a bad point, actually. I hadn't thought about it in that framing. But
yeah, 100%. You're seeing so many people who are usually anti-surveillance. Yes, Laura Loomer, let's call her out specifically, who is calling for Palantir to be implemented. The other thing I thought, because a lot of these donors are private, hey, could it be somebody in the hospitality industry, in these industries where they're being impacted by illegals being stripped so much money that affects their bottom line. And now we have just seen Trump come out and say he is only targeting criminals, not people working in those industries. So my brain straight away goes, were some of them funding it? Is that the intent?
Okay, can I just a little more info, though, real quick. Newsom, it's actually worse than that. Newsom started giving CHIRLA money in 2018.
Yes, okay. Can I please jump in on that?
Go.
Okay. Just two things.
We hate him. We know everything. Go.
Okay, I'll just address CHIRLA first, and then I want to address some of the other funders behind No Kings. And by the way, I just want to acknowledge, there are plenty of people who took part in those demonstrations peacefully, and they did it because they genuinely believe in what they're protesting, okay? I don't want to smear them as, like, paid agents because a lot of people were not. However, CHIRLA, the issue that I can at least understand and agree with when it comes to the right is that they received about $33 billion in public money, meaning taxpayer money. Did I say billion?
You said
sorry.
million.
33 million, apologies.
Yes.
And that money was specifically allocated to the organization to provide legal help and services to people who are undocumented. Now, look, I am in favor of helping people defend themselves legally, but I do agree that it's unfair for taxpayers to fund that effort because not all taxpayers agree with that mission. And so taking public money and funneling it to activist groups or organizations like that, I think is unfair because I would be furious if, let's say, my taxpayer money is going to some, I don't know, far-right activist group that's calling for some other policy that I don't favor. I think that's unfair.
Right.
Now, just real quick, Christy Walton. Do you guys know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
She's an heiress of the Walmart fortune. She was a long-time Republican donor until Trump came along. Now, what did she fund prior to Trump? Union-busting efforts, any politician who was against labor, she funneled money to them. Now, Christy Walton makes a lot of money based on the fact that she owns, I believe, about 2% of Walmart, something around there. Walmart is profitable because they import most of the products that they sell. When you have someone like Donald Trump call for tariffs, that's going to cut into Walmart's profitability. She also, I mean, she just...
You're spot on. And he called out Walmart, remember, for passing the price on to the consumer.
Yes, that's exactly right. So, look, I'm not saying that all of those demonstrators are fake and they were all AstroTurf. No. What I am saying, though, is that some of the financial backers here do not give a damn about the American people. They're trying to protect their own profitability, including the ability to keep undocumented immigrants undocumented so they can pay them less than minimum wage and exploit that labor. That is a huge problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, we also talk about one other ironic thing, just one more quick point I want to make. Some of their main funding came from the DHS.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that so ironic?
And
then where they got their main funding, they are now literally rebelling against that.
Can I ask Anna one question though, real quick? And I promise you're next. I swear to God, I'm sorry. This is my. But just because we're here, is it legal?
Yes.
Oh, but how is it legal?
Okay.
Newsom gives them millions of dollars in California tax money and then takes a donation from them.
That's why.
How is that legal?
We need better laws. First of all, we need to get rid of dark money. So we're able to track things.
There is a group involved in this, by the way, the Arabella Advisors. So having said that, okay, all right, the No Kings website is registered to a digital development firm previously contracted by Arabella Advisors nonprofit partners. These are the same scumbags that started that fake letter about RFK that I ended up having debunked that 17,000 doctors had signed. It's a fake letter. Anybody can sign it. It's total baloney. There's nobody behind it. And AstroTurf did everywhere to create the same consensus that doctors across the country by the thousands were concerned. None of it was real.
Yeah, the AstroTurf issue is a problem. Literally, guys, if you want. Don't do it right now because you should watch the show. We're live. But when you have a chance, there's literally a website. It's a business. It's called Crowds on Demand, where you can literally hire paid protesters. So, like, the Craigslist thing that you brought up is true, but you don't even have to look at Craigslist. There's literally businesses. You can go to their websites and they offer bodies. There you go. Crowds on Demand is your home for impactful advocacy campaigns, demonstrations, PR stunts, crowds for hire, and corporate events.
How easy to create public
sentiment.
And you know what?
Wait, this is not my original point, but to respond to you, Democrats didn't even come up with this idea themselves. They learned it from the Koch brothers. This is what they do.
Yes, that's what the Koch brothers did with the Tea Party.
They created the original template, and Dems were like, oh, this works so well for them. And so Americans for Prosperity, they've been doing this for decades.
Both parties do it. It needs to be rooted out.
Exactly.
We should have organic demonstrations and movements. We should not be funneling taxpayer money to activist groups. I'm sorry, it's unfair to the taxpayer.
I agree, but until Citizens United goes away, which it won't, nothing's going to happen, unfortunately.
What was your original point?
Thank you. I have an original point to make. And I know you love for me to contain my points, but this is actually deeply relevant.
Okay. And how far off piece are you going?
No, it's just the census thing. I do want to
talk about. But I have you're doing that.
Right.
I mean, you're jumping.
Ties in right
all right,
now.
do it.
Right.
Go.
Thank you.
I was going to set you up for that whole thing, but if it's now, take it.
Thank you. So we talked about a lot of the funders. One person that we failed to mention is the Biden administration. Biden funded CHIRLA. And then we have to ask ourselves, why are Democrats so eager to fund these LA riots, to fund these No Kings protests? I still, having been on the inside and having known these people, I suspect, actually, I know that they are trying to do everything they can to pave the way for the 2030 census, to make sure that states like California and New York that would otherwise lose representation can continue to juice up the numbers to ensure that they have as much electoral power as possible. Because after all, guys, the 435 House of Representatives, it is a zero-sum game. The number is not going to increase. It's the same pie. We just divvy it up a different way. So right now, states are basically in a battle to see who can get the most representation. And if it's based on breaking the law, I consider it deeply illegitimate. If you base your representation on illegal aliens, I don't think that's legitimate.
So can I comment on that? Because this has actually been challenged in the courts. In fact, the Trump administration, under his first term, challenged the census in counting undocumented immigrants in their official census count. But they lost in court. And the reason why they lost in court is because the 14th Amendment specifically indicates that every human body on U.S. soil needs to be counted by the census.
Right, I understand that, but I think the originalists, I don't think the founding farmers ever envisioned that people will be using illegal aliens to juice up the numbers. And if Trump, in response to that, I know what you're talking about. In response to that case, he issued something called the 2020 order, which prevented illegal aliens from being counted, but Biden overturned that. So the executive order actually did stand.
Hang on, one thing I need you to explain to people who can get confused about this, because I saw a lot of questions after you brought this up the first time. Well, there are illegals in red states, so this refutes your argument. Can you explain how redistricting and gerrymandering and how it can flip a red state blue?
Exactly. So right now, the illegals are actually being shipped into blue areas of these red states. So it actually doesn't impact the representation all that much because they were blue anyway. So, so gerrymandering is the practice of drawing districts to favor one party or another. And actually, Republicans are great at this. I have to give them, they are fantastic at this. So this is primarily a blue state issue because when illegals go to, and I'm sorry if that offends that term, they are illegal. So when illegals are
so offended right now.
Adam, we got to go to Adam next.
When illegals are shipped to blue states, they go to when illegals are shipped to red states, they are primarily congregating in blue areas, so the status quo remains.
Right.
And so I actually sent a clip. Nat, I don't know if you got it. I have a clip of someone, a senior Democratic lawmaker, admitting to using illegal aliens to skew the censor numbers. It's the text I sent this morning to both you and Jill. Do you have that? Wow. She says it looked like she was like, I'm not sure if she was under oath, but she was certainly a witness testifying to this.
Adam, while we wait for that, go ahead and weigh in here.
So what's the question? Because we've come a long way since what this thing is. No King's protest?
My theory is that they're using illegal aliens to juice up the censorship numbers, which is why they are fighting so hard for these riots, these No Kings, the LA riots, which, I mean, the underlying galvanizing force is that they want to make illegal aliens not illegal.
Yeah, I think, look, for me, it's actually pretty simple. There's one flag that I think should be flying all across America, and that's the flag that I have right here, okay? What happens is this coalition of all these other flags, which is BLM, the feminists, the abortion, the anti-ICE, the gay flags, the Gays for Gaza flags, the Free Palestine, Globalize the Intifada, Defund the Police, they're all their flags put together, and they put their priorities above that of the United States. So for me, it's pretty simple. Fly all your gay, queer, weird flags. You can do that in America. You can't do that anywhere else that you're protesting against. Only in America can you fly those flags. Good luck flying that in all these other countries. America is still the greatest place in the world. We have the greatest flag in the world. We have the greatest national anthem in the world. And only in America can you come out and burn the flag, say you hate America, and then go back home on your iPhone and tweet about it.
Okay.
So this is the problem that I have with all these weirdos
if you hate
out
us,
there
go home.
talking about
why
no
are
kids.
you even here?
Here's the last point.
I lost
Here's the last
the thread.
point, Anna.
What's the issue?
Here's the
here?
last point.
Here's what
a lot of these people are not playing the game. The people playing the game are in Congress. They're the president. They're in power. All these people are booing from the sideline losers that have no power whatsoever.
But the point is it's funded. It's not just organic. It's not these people just doing it. It's funded. A lot of it is CCP. And I'm personally of the belief that we're already in a Cold War with China, man. You don't need to shoot a single bomb to be able to cause chaos and destruction in a place. China's doing it in many ways.
Yeah, but
They're doing it through psychological warfare. They're doing it through dark money.
Yes, it's
They're
China.
doing it with bioweapons.
Yes,
They're
it's
doing
Iran.
it with many
yes,
different
it's Russia.
things.
They're trying to globalize this intifada, globalize China. They're trying to basically make it normal in America to root for jihadists, terrorists, China, gay, LGBT. The Gays for Gaza, I mean, God forsake.
See the videos of the protests being pulled out.
None of this makes any sense.
But
and there's just Marxism masquerading as globalism, masquerading as jihadism.
To bring it back to the beginning, if you go back to Cuomo's clip, he points out that these same groups are behind all of these different exceptionally divisive movements.
Move from one to the other.
So as we look at each other and we're tearing each other to shreds as though it's red and blue, or white and black, or gay and straight, or Israel and Palestine. This is all being orchestrated, and we are engaging in a civil war.
Yeah, look, it doesn't surprise me.
That is what you need to take away.
Yeah, look, it doesn't surprise me at all that foreign interests are going to exploit whatever unrest exists here in the U.S. That is not surprising to me at all. But I do want to just quickly go back to the issue that Lindy brought up, and I want to stay on that topic because we're kind of all over the place. So, Lindy, you mentioned the gerrymandering. That is a huge problem. So I agree with you on that. But I want to understand the connection to undocumented immigrants, because I could see that as being a problem if the representation of undocumented immigrants in our census is somehow rigging elections, but it's not.
But it is, though.
How?
If it gives an extra electoral college point, then how does that not rig
No,
it?
I'm talking about the 435, the way that
Both
they're divvied
of
up.
those
Right, that's
the
primarily
theory.
the issue. I looked at the numbers today, and I'm happy to dig in my phone, but California would have lost seats in the 2020 census were it not for illegal aliens.
Understood.
Even if it were 1 to 2 seats, I think that's 1 to 2 seats too many.
So it's electoral. It's controlling Congress.
Yeah.
And it's subsequently
matters
controlling
so much.
votes
Exactly.
in the electoral
There
college.
was an analysis in 2020 that backs up what you're saying.
Right.
But you're not saying that like undocumented immigrants are like voting in elections.
No, I'm not saying that
that's
at all.
not the case.
There's something I also haven't said. It's the federal funding and allocation of resources.
That's true.
And the more populous a state is, the more money they get.
Right.
So there's so much behind this. This is why there are deeply deep-pocketed, deep vested interests trying to fund these riots to make it seem like popular consensus is behind them when
You're
it's not.
saying what I always say, follow the money.
Exactly.
There we go.
There's no
Lindy Li,
there's no evidence.
follow the money.
Why are they pushing
I want to keep going. Do I have to break? I know we're live,
What
but
does
can
it say
I
about
finish
trying
the
to
show?
push through?
Let's go.
Team, do I have time? I got a 5-minute warning, but we
You're
got...
the freaking boss. Continue the show. Let's go, Jillian.
All right, so
Yeah.
here's the bigger question. Well, Lindy, you buried the lead. I had set this up to flow.
Let's.
Hit her.
The next segment was why have the Democrats engaged in an about face, right? How come they went from the party of deporting millions to all of a sudden it's a crime against humanity? Okay, hold on. So now I got.
Because they don't have real values.
Can you pull up my Anna Paulina Luna clip, please, Nat?
At least the people leading the party, not everyone.
Memo that was released that stated that the government of China considered you a prime target for influence operations. I'm letting you know that now because I do believe that you should be made aware of, if you are not already, that you are working with and going to be speaking at an organization and rally that not is just funded by Christy Walton, the heiress of Walmart, but also has ties to the Chinese Progressive Association, largely funding it, that actually brags on their website that they are pro-Maoist. Also, too, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. I know there's a lot of people on this committee that don't like billionaires interfering in politics, but say nothing when George Soros gets over $260 million from USAID through the last administration that's then funneled into some of these nonprofits.
That's a fair argument.
Wait for it.
So I guess my question for you guys is now that I've made you aware that these riots are not about illegals and they're not about immigrants, if they did, they would have been protesting under Barack Obama, who's also dubbed the deporter-in-chief. And frankly, I think many of you would say that Barack Obama was a good president. Are you going to say that Barack Obama wasn't a good president? Yes or no, Governor Waltz? Do you think he was a good president?
Okay.
I love that she did this.
You can kill it right there. They all say
it was
yes.
great.
Okay.
She asked the question, what? Do you think
Do you
Barack
think
Obama
Barack
was a good president?
president?
And what
Now,
did Tampon Tim have to say?
yeah, they all said.
Let's get that tampon back while we're talking about Tim.
They all said yes, but hold on. Now throw up the Obama clip for me, just in case anybody questions whether or not this is true. Let's take a look at what comes out of his own mouth. Yep.
Just went up.
Louder, please, Nat.
The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president.
Yep, there you go.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century.
Okay. Hang on. Hold on. I know what you're going to say. So you're going to turn around and you're going to say due process.
No. I'm not going to say that.
Because I was going to blow holes in that bullshit right now.
Okay, so let me make the argument that I want to make.
Do
it.
it.
So the reason why there wasn't this big uproar when Obama, and by the way, till this day, Obama deported far more people than any other administration. That is true, including compared to Trump.
Clinton 12, but you could say 11 million were returns.
Well, okay, that's right. Okay, so here's the difference.
Okay, go ahead.
Hold on, but Jill, you have to understand that the way that you present yourself and what you're going to do is either going to rile people up or not rile people up.
Okay, fair.
So the reason why Obama was able to deport so many people is he deported them right away as soon as they crossed or tried to come.
True, and
but it is.
It isn't though. I've got like exact numbers. First of all, Clinton. Okay, I'll let you make the case, but it is not freaking true.
But that's why his deportation numbers are so high.
That is not true. He deported 3 million and he returned 2 million. 3 million he deported.
No, I know.
2 million
I know.
he returned.
Okay, they brought them back here?
No. I'll explain it. It's the different mechanisms, the different levers he pulled to do it.
Okay. So my point is, with Trump, going into the country and trying to find undocumented immigrants to deport is a lot harder, a lot more costly.
Okay.
And it's the way that Trump does it, right? So when he demonizes immigrants, that's going to rile up the left immediately. Obama didn't do that. The other thing is, when you start seeing ICE agents, hold on. I think that the idea of, in broad daylight, going to Home Depot parking lots to deport day laborers, that's a big public spectacle on purpose. That is going to lead to anger and unrest.
Not what happened, though.
But that is what happened.
That isn't what happened.
In Westlake.
Hold on.
In Westlake, that's exactly what they did.
He didn't raid the Home Depot, though. They were serving criminal...
That's not true.
Guys, I'm fixing my house this weekend. There better be some illegals at Home Depot.
The BBC...
I need my windows done. Hurricane season in Florida.
Hold on. Let me go through how Obama did this and then decide. Okay, so the first one was he used a tool called expedited removal. So this is a fast-track deportation at the border or within 100 miles of it. For those that were here for 14 days, although they couldn't prove, by the way, that they were here for longer, so of course they all got sent out. If they were within 100 miles, they had no court hearing. The immigration officer acts as judge and jury. This is from legislation passed by Bill Clinton. Okay, then there was reinstatement of removal definition. This is another way he did it. If someone re-enters the U.S. illegally after previously being deported, their old removal order is reinstated. There is no hearing unless they re-enter and claim asylum. Number 3, stipulated removal orders. This is where immigrants signed an agreement to be deported without a hearing while being detained. And this was controversial because they didn't even know what they were signing. No outrage. Voluntary return. So return in lieu of a removal definition, which apparently had penalties. They agreed to leave voluntarily. There was no judge involved. There were no lawyers involved. There was no due process hearing. Administrative removal. For non-citizens convicted of aggravated felonies, removal by ICE, no judge, no jury. No, I didn't traffic them. I didn't beat my wife. Operation Streamline. A program that criminally prosecuted border crossers en masse before removing them as a deterrent not to come in. Dozens of defendants tried and sentenced in one hearing. Now, to combat the argument about ICE raids...
I know, but you're not getting the argument I'm making.
Okay, but I'm about to address it.
Okay.
We had secure communities. This is when California cooperated with ICE. They would detain people, and there were no raids for that reason. Now California refuses to cooperate, forcing ICE into the streets.
There was no Obama derangement syndrome.
So let me just make the argument.
Okay, do it.
So the reason why there's an uprising in places like Los Angeles, which of course has had a massive immigrant and yes, undocumented immigrant community for a long time, is because everything you just listed under Obama was happening on the DL, right? There was no media coverage of it. There was no spectacle around it.
Shout out to R. Kelly. Keep it on the down low.
There was no spectacle around it. Whereas the Wall Street Journal, which is not a lefty publication, the Wall Street Journal, notoriously conservative, they put out a report, I believe a week ago, where they talked about how Stephen Miller was furious that Trump's numbers are nowhere close to Obama's. So he basically ordered ICE to go for the low-hanging fruit. And while you're going to argue that they did not raid, Home Depot parking lots, there's video of it.
They arrested people there, but they were in the midst of serving criminal warrants. This is what has come from Tom Homan himself. He did a full interview with Dr. Phil about it, and there was collateral damage. But if you don't have sanctuary cities, you will not have collateral damage.
I agree with you on that.
Meaning illegals that are not criminals.
So in the case of California, and by the way, sanctuary city laws differ from city to city. So I'm specifically going to talk about California and Los Angeles.
Right.
So in the case of Los Angeles, let's say you have an undocumented immigrant who has been convicted of a crime and they're serving time in prison for it. ICE basically reaches out to California and says, look, once they're done with their sentence, please just keep them detained because we want to deport them. They're here illegally and they've committed additional crimes that they've served time for, they've been convicted of. Their due process has already happened, okay? So at that point, California should say, okay, we're going to cooperate in this very narrow area. I don't think that makes you a bad person or a right-winger to, cooperate with ICE in those circumstances.
It's the law.
Right.
It is the freaking federal law. If you don't like it, by all means,
and in
march
fact,
on the Capitol,
and in
demand
fact,
reform.
Their unwillingness to cooperate has led to this situation in which I'm going to just say it. I don't want day laborers and people who are not causing any problems in this country to be the target of the Trump administration.
You're totally right. They should, but that's immigration reform, and we'll get to that. Right now, though, it is the selective outrage and what is actually behind it. Because once again, if I have to get into one more fight with a friggin' Californian about how Trump is a Nazi when their heroes manipulated the law in such a nefarious way, and there was zero outrage, and then they go, due process, you buffoon. Do your homework before you fucking tweet it one more time. Due process.
Jillian, let's go.
That's
what we needed from Jillian Michaels. We're waiting on this all day, Jillian.
Show off, Queen.
There's something else that we haven't yet discussed.
Piece of shit.
You don't know what you're talking about.
There's another reason why it's so much.
Sorry.
I agree with everything you just said.
I'm okay.
I'm fighting all weekend.
Somebody give me a joint for Jillian.
But by the way, the one area where...
Please, the one reason why... Another reason why it's so difficult for Trump to deport or relatively harder, it's because of how vocal he's been, and it's had a deterrent effect on a lot of the migration patterns that otherwise would have come. You know, because during Obama and Biden, there was none of that rhetoric, that inflammatory rhetoric. Kamala Harris got slammed when she said, remember? She said, stay home. Like, we don't stay home. And she got so much pushback. And so that was the end of all sort of incendiary rhetoric. And instead, with Trump, we see that every single day.
So one other thing I'll say is, you know, the one area in which Trump was still enjoying quite a bit of favorability was the area of immigration. However, a recent poll that came out, it just came out last week, shows that he is now underwater on immigration, specifically because of the people that are being targeted by ICE as we speak, which is why Trump kind of did a little bit of a backpedal and just recently put out a statement, both on social media and through, I think it was a press conference or a speech, where he said, you know, a lot of our farmers are concerned because really good people are being targeted.
That's why I think it's big ag.
Yeah,
that's 100%. What I think. I think big ag was like,
I don't think Donald Trump is concerned. Like, Anna, you bring up a really good point, but I don't think he gives a shit what independents and Democrats think. And I think he's underwater.
He cares about independents, not Democrats.
He's underwater because of slippage in the Democrats and independents, not with the MAGA base. I'm actually extreme on immigration. I don't want any illegal aliens here. I don't want any of that.
Well,
what I mean is his behavior, his antics or whatever, it's not going to affect. MAGA loves it. They're eating it up right now.
Adam, what do you think?
So if there was one job that Trump is doing, he's being a janitor and he's cleaning up everybody's mess. Whether it's tariffs with China, whether it's illegal immigration with Mexico, whether it's the Islamic Revolution of Iran, he's coming in and saying mop, mop, mop all day long, mop, mop, mop while I sing this song. He's cleaning up the mess that past presidents and former administrations have done. He's basically saying, get all this nonsense out of here. Do you remember in 2016, Trump would always talk about the polls? I'm winning in the polls, you're losing, you're a loser. Trump don't talk about the polls at all anymore. He don't give a shit what approval ratings are. He doesn't care what his net approval is. Trump don't give a shit. Trump is saying, I have basically 3 years left to clean up this entire mess that Obama, that Bush, that past presidents have done, and he doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what you say. He's going to do what he's got to do because he has a mandate to clean up America and focus on America first. That's what he's doing with his little mop in hand.
Can we?
Which is why, going back to my earlier point, we are not going to be dragged into a forever war. He's going to do what he wants, you know?
Oh, wait, don't I'm
just
go back.
saying,
Don't go back.
Trump is, what I mean,
I'm not trying to shut you down.
Trump is his own person.
Lindy, focus on the future, not the past.
Well, I mean,
okay, Anna, you too.
We're supposed to learn from the past, but okay.
Final topic I want to address, because I would imagine that nobody at this table is unfeeling. And the reality is that we're all either migrants or descendants of migrants at this table, correct?
Immigrants?
Immigrants, I'm sorry. Immigrants.
My family walked here from Russia, 1850s, in Belarus.
I stand corrected. And you just saw Trump walk that back on the farmers. And the one thing that I've seen a lot out of
and hotel workers
Newsom and Bass, right, is the economy. The economy. Can you throw up that Bass clip for me, Nat? And of course, this economy that they're so busy protecting is all based on the backs of exploiting illegal immigrants. Sorry.
They got here somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay, hold on. That's pulling it up. But the point I want to make here is the vast difference between coming in legally versus coming in illegally. And I'm going to show you how much illegal immigration hurts people who come in an undocumented capacity and American citizens. We don't even need it. The bottom line is she's like, the economy, this is breaking the back of our economy. Okay. So would anybody like to run with this? Because I have a whole list.
Well, yeah, Andy and I are walking, and we are living, breathing examples
do the dark part first, if you can. Show me all the bad things. I can do it as well of illegal immigration.
Let's use a stat that's already been spouted. The 1.4 million illegal aliens that are currently on our Medicaid program. Why are we paying for them? Why? Tell me. We're already bankrupt. Why are we paying for people that aren't even our people?
That hurts citizens. Okay.
That hurts us.
Because America loves wasting money.
To drain on the system.
We owe $37 trillion.
It seems like there's so many.
Give it to people one by one.
Can we talk about the rape victims, the assault victims?
That's what I was going to say. It feels like there's no interest in assimilation anymore. Before, when you wanted to be an immigrant in this country, you came here, you spent your money, you wanted to slip under the radar, to just fit in and come here for a better life.
Exactly.
They refuse to assimilate anymore.
Okay, but this would be if you were controlling immigration legally, then you would have security checks. They have quotas for that exact reason, to make sure that we have a diverse population and you don't get people who believe in Sharia law by the millions. There are a few other things, guys. It prevents the cartels from running our border as a billion-dollar business to traffic humans and fentanyl. In fact, we lost 300,000 kids during the Biden administration. They were trafficked and lost somewhere in the country. We don't know where they are. This would not happen. Well, thankfully, the border is now closed. And then subsequently, if we had reform, which we'll talk about, it blows the quotas we talked about. You can't control who's here. It overruns the infrastructure. It prevents security screenings and health screenings. It creates shadow economies. This whole economy they're talking about, it's all off the books.
Can we also
Where's the tax money that you need so badly, Gav? If you want to keep going, I got more.
I mean, there's something that maybe this is an extreme point, and the Bulwark, that rag, wrote an article the first time I brought it up on her take. When countries like Poland and China and Japan want to keep a homogenous society and to maintain their equilibrium, we don't bat an eyelash. We're like, okay, just you do you. But when America tries to do the same thing, even a little bit.
That is not what I'm arguing for.
I'm just saying. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point, though. I just don't want the Islamification of America.
Oh my God.
But Lindy, I'm anti that. And the argument
you think you're okay with that happening to our country?
The Islamification? No. Having a melting pot? Yes.
But that's not what I'm saying, though. I'm against.
Don't talk to me about homogeny, though.
Wait, yeah, I mean, saying
the identity of the United States.
Even if we do it a little bit, I just don't want our campuses to be like, look at the way they are, death to America. These pro-Hamas movements. This is what's happening. This is not my imagination.
Legal immigration, because people can then be vetted if they are in fact.
Well, that's what I'm.
And the students you're talking about are in the country legally.
Right, but
they have visas and green cards.
In our first episode, we talked about
how you just don't like their speech and you want to
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. The guy, the Muhammad, whatever his name is,
Mahmoud Khalil.
I'm sorry. Mahmoud. My argument earlier, we already hashed this out, that I believe he was dishonest on his visa application. He said he was going to come here to study. He didn't say he was going to come here to incite violence.
There's no evidence of him inciting violence at all.
This is a whole separate. This is a First Amendment conversation. He did have a visa.
Look, let me go back to immigration, okay?
Okay, let's stay with me.
At the heart of this problem is the fact that you have Congress that's useless. Okay, they get nice salaries, great health insurance, and they don't do jack shit for us. They don't pass legislation that reforms the problems that we have in this country. And as a result, what we end up relying on is the president passing down executive orders, and it's going to differ every 4 years or every 8 years, depending on who's in charge. This is not a system that works. I think it victimizes everyone, including the people who are undocumented. I don't want businesses to exploit their labor. There needs to be a pathway to citizenship. Otherwise, you're going to have a situation where a Democratic president comes in and, to do favors for their constituents, they're going to be a little looser at the border.
And
then a Republican comes in and does the opposite. That is not a sustainable system.
I hear you, but I'm just saying that we shouldn't provide a pathway to citizenship for everybody. I just don't believe that.
You were born in China, girl. And you had a pathway to citizenship. Others deserve it too.
My family and I came here with useful skills. My dad was a doctor. You know what I mean? Okay. These are useful skills that America needed. We contributed to society.
Literally outperform migrants. I did it again.
Immigrants.
Legal immigrants.
Right. That's
outperform Americans.
That's what I want. I don't want illegal. I don't want migrants. I don't want low-skilled labor. I want high-skilled labor, people who can actually contribute to the success of America.
That's not what the research shows historically. It shows that people who come here legally stimulate the economy. They pay taxes. They put a floor under the American wage instead of undermining it.
I think that's a bogey argument that Americans don't want those jobs. Let's see what happens.
But if you pay everybody a fair wage...
That's what I'm saying. Okay. Let's do that. Let's hire American. I'm all about Americans.
Homogeneity, and I'm hearing...
Can we leave that behind? I think what I'm saying, I think you're getting a little... I think that was... Maybe I shouldn't have thrown out their red herring. My main argument is America, from my point of view, and you can disagree, this is just my point of view, America's full. Okay? If you want to come here, you got to bring in useful skills that can prime our economic engine, contribute to our knowledge base, do something good for America. I don't want people leeching off of our system. We cannot afford to pay for your health care anymore. We just don't. We can't afford it.
If they come in legally,
that's what I'm saying. We should have a process for high-skilled labor. That's what I'm saying.
Look, you have to send more judges to the border to more quickly adjudicate cases. You have to reform and clean up the asylum system. It's totally corrupt.
We should not
Economic immigrants are not refugees. They're very different things. Like
I think some of them are, though. I think some of them are. I think you should be able to prove your usefulness to America. That's just my point of view. And also, people come in, and there's also, we haven't even touched on overstaying visas. People have abused our system in so many ways.
How do you facilitate determining or deciphering whether someone who's trying to come into the country legally is worth it based on their skill? Are you going to give them an IQ test? Are you going to do like an obstacle course?
Let me give you an exact example. My dad, I'm from England, not from China, actually. I spent most of my time from 1 to 4 in England, and my dad had to apply and say, we're going to go to Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard Medical School. That's where I'm going to, practice. And my mom did similar. She got an education degree. Like, these are useful skills. And since then, my parents, they're amazing. They've created hundreds of jobs. Hundreds of American jobs around the Mid-Atlantic area. Okay, we made America stronger. We love this country to pieces. These are the people that we need to bring in. We don't need to bring in people who chant death to America.
Hold on. No one. That is a red herring. No one's arguing that. But here's my argument to you.
But the people are arguing that.
What about immigrants who are trying to come into the country legally and they're trying to flee a dictatorship or hold on, and they didn't even have an opportunity to get an education. They didn't have an opportunity to thrive.
I don't think we should be the
to reject them, I think, is un-American.
I don't think we're the Salvation Army of the world.
I think that's the group that is the least likely to assimilate.
That's not true. That is not true. I worked for the United Nations Refugee Agency, and that is not the case. When they are allowed to go into a country legally and work, they thrive.
Yep.
I could give you numerous case studies of it. I promise you.
So then why is it different with the current illegals coming through? Is it because the incentives are set up so they don't even need to work? They get a call.
Amy, they can't start businesses. They can't get a fair wage. Their labor is exploited, and then it breeds resentment, and it undercuts the American worker. And as much as people but the best part is it's the most racist narrative. Gavin Newsom, all these, who's going to do your dishes? Who's going to pick your fields? As Batya Ungar Sargon just said, only 28% of the people that are working in the fields are, quote, immigrants. So Americans will take those jobs if you pay everybody a fair wage.
That's what I'm trying to say. Let's hire Americans. Why do we need to rely on illegal...
Okay, how about this? Let me give you an example, because here's a solution that I came up with. We cannot recruit people for the military. We are incapable of friggin' doing it. Another reason, by the way, that Trump threw that army birthday, whatever, because we spend billions of dollars trying to recruit. Like, is it honorable? Yes. Is it something aspirational? I hope so. Okay, moving on. 77% of Americans are too unhealthy to join the military. What if you said, hey, young men and women, you want to come over here? You want to fight for this country? You want to be a part of the military? We're going to vet you. They've got a very capable system of checks and balances in place to vet people. We're just not doing it because Biden had open borders for so long and we've closed paths to citizenship. Come on in.
Here's a work visa. They provide a useful contribution. That's actually great.
But that's the argument, though, is that they can contribute to society. They just don't have to be exceptionally educated.
Well, that's a useful skill, though. I said useful skill. That's a useful skill. Let's do that. I'm actually behind that.
What you're bringing is a good proposition of saying, hey, you come to this country, you need to start loving America and do something to help America.
Thank you.
I would argue, thank you, Lindy. I would argue that we also need to advance that narrative to actual Americans. Because in my experience, the people that come here that are immigrants actually tend to love America
they do.
More than the wussy-ass progressive left that actually hate America.
Stop shitting on America.
What I'll say, I was always fearful of the far right. the neo-Nazis, the KKK, the white nationalists, you know, they're burning the cross. At the very least, they love America so much they don't want anybody with a little bit of a tan to be here. But the people on the left hate America so much. They're the ones burning the flags. They're the ones that are calling for every other country to rise up against and start America over and burn down the American flag and basically delegitimize the West. So most immigrants, you know, they come here in the whole question of assimilation. I don't know. I know a lot of Cubans that come and live in Miami and speak no English 40 years later. Are like, Papa, you speaking no English? No English. They're not assimilating, but they love America. If you talk to them about Fidel Castro, they want to get on top.
That's true. They're from countries with communism.
They love,
the difference.
exactly. They love America. A lot of these people that flee here love America. My big issue are two things. People that are from America, that have been indoctrinated to hate America, send them a one-way ticket to anywhere they want in the world. Let's bring them to Iran. The next thing is people that we basically come in here that legitimately hate America. I call them socialist jihadists. They're willing to fight for any cause other than America. I know you get triggered when I say jihadist.
No,
I'm not talking about any particular people.
Because you think that this country is like ruled by, you know, Islam, which is like hilarious and ridiculous.
That's what I said.
Let me ask you something. There was a mass uprising. There was a mass uprising during COVID, during the shutdowns. Okay, there were a lot of conservatives out on the streets protesting. That was their right to do that.
Yeah.
It was their right to protest against the government and what the government was doing. I would never in a million years accuse them of hating America. It is their right to have a problem with the government. The reason why we have a First Amendment is so the American people can rise up and protest against government overreach, over a government that has gotten too big. So can you just please not smear people who protest government policies as people who hate America?
You're absolutely right, but you're only half right. Because the difference is those people are flying American flags, not burning American flags. There's a big difference in saying, I love America so much, I'm going to come out here and protest, versus I hate America so much, I'm burning a flag. Do you understand that distinction?
I think it looks really, really bad if you're part of any movement or any organization or any group of protesters who burns the American flag, even though it's constitutionally protected to do so. I don't think that those people are trying to say, I hate America. They're trying to protest against what the American government is currently doing.
These are the same people who want us to basically dismantle our history and disown our history and then shit on the founding farmer. I'm sorry, so there's a
the founding farmers. They were out there and the cows, the horses, and the seeds.
They're the same people.
Old MacDonald had a farm. Tell them, Lindy.
They're the same people who trashed Thomas Jefferson for owning slaves. They're the same people who say that George Washington wasn't a hero.
So
I'm done with that.
They're the same people that hated Abraham Lincoln.
A lot of those people are American citizens. So what are you asking to do here?
I'm just saying that there are people.
You're
disputing the claim that they don't hate America. I'm saying they actually, some of them deeply do, and they're ashamed of our history. And I'm done apologizing for the United States of America. I love this freaking country. Okay.
If Biden were in charge, you would say something different, right?
No, I love this country. No,
you don't.
No, that's actually not true. I've been saying this entire. I love this country.
I think this argument gets made when look. It's funny because if there's a Democrat in charge and there's like a mass protest or a mass, conservative movement against that government, there's never any smears about, oh, these people are anti-America.
Wait, I said that about the George Floyd people
guys,
too.
Last thoughts, because we all have flights to catch.
I just have one question.
The George Floyd people were on the left, and they were,
Hold on.
I condemn them as well.
I want to understand one thing. Who do you think loves America more? People on the right or people on the left?
The right.
What's your metric? What are you basing that on?
When you see a flag in front of someone's house,
okay.
Do you equate them with the Republican?
Is that all it takes? Or so that's the only way you can show your love for America?
It's a stereotype,
but that's a pretty good understanding. If someone has an American flag, which way they lean?
I think if the demonstrators are demonstrating against policies or a government that you favor, it's easy to smear them as anti-American.
I think that's unfair.
I'm using their words.
Hold on, which
when
party?
I see a gay, trans, pro-Palestine flag and I see American flags on one side, I want the American flag
really trigger you.
or the Gays for Gaza crew.
Adam, to
I'm
your
going to go with the pro-America crew.
There's a pure America argument there.
Adam,
okay,
to your
guys,
point.
you have 2 minutes.
Hold on. You said follow the money. Let's follow the money. Let's ask ourselves, which party wants to keep the money here and focus on the American people, and which party is using USAID to funnel billions of dollars around the world? Okay?
USAID has been around for
Yeah, and I don't know if that
decades.
is exclusively to the Democratic Party. For sure,
JFK
I agree with you. And you know what? Absolutely,
That is
I'm
actually
starting
primarily
to
Democratic.
increasingly realize that not for all liberals.
Absolutely.
I feel like for a lot of liberals, honestly, it's like Marxism and socialism is this mask that they're using to disguise Or, sorry, the opposite. Liberalism is the mask that they're using to disguise Marxism and socialism.
I'm starting
and especially
to
when you
that.
start to look into all of the dark funding and the money that's actually going to carry out those policies. So, I mean...
It's not liberalism, it's progressivism. Liberalism is actually totally fine. Most countries have... Progressivism is what's basically been hijacked by the Marxist philosophy.
Okay, last thoughts, and where do we find you? Anna.
I think it's hilarious that anyone thinks that this country is being overrun by Marxists. I know Marxism. There's literally 5 people who are genuine Marxists in this country. I think that there is a problem with foreign influence in our demonstrations and our movements. But if we want to get that foreign influence out, it has to come out across the board, not just when it's detrimental to your preferred political party.
I see your point. I see your point.
Yeah.
Where do we find you?
Oh, sorry about that. You can find me. I'm the host and executive producer of TYT, youtube.com/theyoungturks. You can also follow me on Substack, Kasparian.substack.com.
Despite all the disagreements, I'm glad we talked about things that matter. Guys, we need to be informing ourselves and asking deeper questions. Go one layer deeper than the answer that you're getting. But why? You'd be surprised how much more information you're able to gather. And I feel like we did that today.
Agreed.
So thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
My name's Amy Dangerfield. You can find me on my show, Dangerous Conversations, or you can message me on Minette.
I'm Lindy Li. I just want to say I love this country. America's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I would be nowhere without the United States. It's the greatest blessing of my life, and I've said that regardless of who's in charge. I want to be very clear. I love this country. I would die for this country. America is everything. You can find me on X. I'm Lindy Li. Also, I'm on Minette. Thank you for watching.
America, that's it.
America.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. Anna, I'll do this and fight with you any day of the week. I enjoyed this. This woke me up a little bit. You can find me arguing with men on the PBD podcast on Valuetainment. You can find me arguing with women on Her Take, or you can find me clubbing in the club in Miami at Bodega or at 11 with my friends down in Miami. But appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
God bless America.
All right, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things. Good talk, team. Good talk.
Wow. How long was that?